When Yun Chujo heard Xue Wuji's words, she did not try to persuade him further. She knew that Xue Wuji had a willful temperament. The past year had indeed been too sullen. She should respect his choice. Moreover, with Xue Wuji by Di Baiming's side, she could at least persuade him a little. She knew that although Di Baiming had become cold and ruthless, he was still thinking of their old friendship. Otherwise, he would not have reminded Xue Wuji. Brother Wuji, since you've made up your mind, I won't persuade you anymore. What reason do you plan to use to leave the primordial chaos sect? That's simple. I've already said that I don't want to be a handyman, and am preparing to reapply next year. I'm just a handyman, so I should be able to pass easily. Xue Wuji said indifferently. Yun Chujo nodded. After all, she was just a handyman, and she had only entered the sect for a few days, so there shouldn't be any big trouble. If it really didn't work out, she could just spend some spirit stones to settle it. The three of them had come to an agreement. Yun Chujo sent Xue Wuji away and then returned to the house. Little Joe, this is for you. Di Baiming handed Yun Chujo a jade token. Yun Chujo took it and looked at it. The jade token was ordinary, and she couldn't see what level of spirit tool it was. She asked in puzzlement, Prince Charming, what is this jade token used for? There is a strand of my spiritual sense inside. If you encounter a life-threatening situation, you only need to crush the jade token, and the spiritual sense inside will turn into my avatar. As long as you don't get into a huge trouble, I can help you settle it. Di Baiming had an arrogant look on his face, but his eyes were full of affection and doting. Yun Chujo had never heard of such a divine ability. She looked at it several times curiously and then said, if I use this, it won't have any bad effect on you, right? Di Baiming's eyes flashed and he said arrogantly, what are you talking about? How can I affect you? If it wasn't for the rare jade token, I would have given you 10 or 8 pieces. Yun Chujo was relieved after hearing what Di Baiming said. She saw that there was a hole in the jade token, so she tied it with a string made of heavenly silk and put it on her neck. Seeing Yun Chujo like this, Di Baiming nodded with satisfaction. He naturally would not tell Yun Chujo that using the clone technique once would cause a lot of damage to the original body. As long as little Joe was fine, what was a little injury to him? The next morning when Yun Chujo was about to get up and go to work, Di Baiming held her down. Don't go. Whoever wants to go, go. How can they deserve to eat your food? Yun Chujo knew that this ancestor was a man of his word, so she could only send a message to Jinji, asking her to help old man Yao ask for a leave of absence. She would say that she had a bad stomach. Jinji had already heard from Infeng that Di Baiming had come, so she agreed without asking much. It was rare for her to sleep in, so Yun Chujo immediately felt refreshed. However, when she saw a certain master waiting for her to serve her, a small flame suddenly rose in her heart. Little Joe, come over and dress this lord. Little Joe, come over and clean this lord's face. Little Joe, come over and prepare breakfast for this lord. The bullied 9 originally wanted to resist, but when she thought of the numerous wounds on a certain lord's body, she endured it. This fellow consoled herself that the wheel of fortune had turned. Perhaps when the gigolo undid the seal again, he would become a masochist. At that time she would be able to turn over a serf and sing. After having breakfast, Yun Chujo and Di Baiming chatted casually. When it was almost noon, Xue Wuji came valiantly. Little sister Joe, I have already completed the procedures. You must be more careful in the future. If anyone bullies you, remember first. When I become stronger, I will come back and help you take revenge. Xue Wuji was reluctant to part with her, however, in order to become stronger. He could only leave the Chaos Origin sect. Before Yun Chujo could say anything, Di Baiming snorted coldly. Little Joe has this main body to protect her. Why would she need you to take revenge? Stop talking nonsense and get lost quickly. This main body will send you a message when I leave. Xue Wuji endured it. You're a facial paralysis. Just you wait, I will teach you a lesson sooner or later. When Yun Chujo sent Xue Wuji off, she said softly, Brother Wuji, don't be angry with this Prince Charming. It's because he has removed the seal that his temperament has changed greatly. You must bear with him a little more. In the future, remind him to not let him go his own way. If you can't persuade him, send me a voice transmission talisman. I'll think of a way. Shue Wuji smiled bitterly. Little sister Jo, how can I be so stingy? Don't worry. I know that no matter how that facial paralysis changes, his core will never change. It'll tell you if there's anything. You have to be more careful in the future. This primordial chaos sect is complicated. Don't be careless. Yun Chujia's nose was a little sore. She nodded and said, Brother Wuji, don't be too anxious. It's best if you can break the seal. It doesn't matter if you can't. After all, you have a mutated wind spirit root. Sooner or later you will soar to the sky. Shue Wuji nodded and turned around to leave the courtyard. Shue Wuji sighed silently. The seal was bound to be broken. If he did not become stronger, he would not be able to protect his family. He would not be able to protect his friends. He would also not be able to find that damn woman. Yun Chujo turned around and returned to the house. Di Baiming glanced at her. Anyway, you have my clone jade token. It doesn't matter if that trash is not by your side. I brought him away for his own good. Yun Chujo nodded. Yes, I understand. Prince Charming, I want to talk to you. Can you promise not to be angry? Di Baiming raised his eyebrows and smiled. What do you want to say? Are you trying to persuade me not to be so arrogant? Yun Chujo choked and nodded awkwardly. Di Baiming curled his lips. Even if you don't say it, I know what you're trying to say. What's wrong with being arrogant? What's wrong with being cautious? Besides, I'm arrogant because I have enough strength. This is called confidence. Is this called arrogance? For example, all your enemies are as weak as ants. How can you not be arrogant? Yun Chujo really wanted to go up and give Di Baiming 2 slaps, but she did not dare. After Di Baiming finished speaking, seeing that Yun Chujo did not say anything, he said proudly, Little Jo, do you think what I said makes sense? Makes sense, my ass. You arrogant bastard. Yun Chujo could not stand it anymore. She pointed at Di Baiming's nose and said, Pretty boy, I have tolerated you for a long time. Yes, that's right. Your spiritual power is very high, but have you really reached the point where you can do whatever you want? Can you destroy the primordial chaos sect by yourself? Yes. Yun Chujo. Alright, forget what she said just now. Damn it, she didn't want to talk anymore. Seeing that Yun Chujo pouted and didn't say anything, Di Baiming touched her hair with his hand and sighed. Alright. Continue talking. I won't interrupt. Yun Chujo took a deep breath. Alright, even if you are pretty awesome, let me ask you. Do you know where the lair of the Divine Devil Temple is? Can you defeat the person who tore through the void to save Su Yenran back then? Also, do you have a way to get the Go Weiba out of my body? Can you eradicate that enemy of yours? If you can do what I said, you can be as arrogant as you want. I promise I won't say anything else. Di Baiming's expression turned gloomy, and he did not speak for a long time. Although Yun Chujo felt that saying this would hurt Di Baiming's self-esteem, if he did not do so, he would probably go crazy. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes. She had finished slapping him and it was time to give him some sweet dates. Prince Charming, I know what I said just now was a little harsh, but I'm really afraid that you will be in danger if you underestimate your enemy. If anything were to happen to you, how am I supposed to live? Bai Lianzhou looked at Di Baiming with tears in her eyes. She looked so pitiful and pitiful. Di Baiming's heart ached. He quickly wiped Bai Lianzhi's tears away. I didn't say anything. Why are you crying? What you said makes a little bit of sense. Although I'm very strong, I'm still a little off. I'll be more careful. Sob, Prince Charming. You don't know that you're the strongest and most powerful person in my heart. However, humans aren't gods. It's inevitable that there will be times when we're careless. So it's only right to listen to the opinions of others. Don't you think so? Bai Lianzhou said as he sobbed. Di Baiming nodded unwillingly. Yes, you're right. I'll pay attention. Sob sob. Although Brother Black Rooster and Enfeng are much weaker than you, they're useless when compared to you. However, it's inevitable that they'll be smart at times. So, Prince Charming, it's fine for you to listen to what they say from time to time. Don't you agree? Bai Lianzhou apologized to the two who were caught in the crossfire. Then I'll listen to the words of those two useless people from time to time. A certain lord felt that the words of his little wife were very pleasing to the ear. That's right, those two useless people couldn't be compared to him at all. Sob, Prince Charming, I really can't live without you. So before you take the risk, you must remember that I'm still waiting for you. So you must think twice before you act, alright? Bai Lianzhou's shoulders trembled as she cried. She looked like she was in so much pain that she wished she could die. A certain Zhou's heart was about to break as she hurriedly said, I got it. I'll try my best not to take risks in the future. Don't cry anymore. A certain Zhou wiped her tears on Di Baiming's body and nodded. Yes, I believe that you will definitely keep your word, Prince Charming. I might be too sad and have a headache. Prince Charming, please help me massage my head. Di Baiming immediately became nervous. He carefully massaged a certain Zhou's head and asked in a low voice, Are you better? Does it still hurt? A certain Zhou hummed, I'm better, but it still hurts a little. Help me massage for a while more. A certain Zhou was so angry that she was sick, so a certain Zhou naturally could not let her serve her anymore. Instead, she became a wife slave who served tea and water. A certain Zhou was proud in her heart. Little girl, no matter how arrogant you are, you have to be a wife's slave obediently. In the blink of an eye, it was the next morning. Although she was reluctant to leave, Di Baiming still left. After Di Baiming left, Yun Chuzhou went to the kitchen to work. Elder Yao did not say anything. Because Xue Wuji had left, Yun Chuzhou could only become a fire-burning servant again. Thinking of Xue Wuji's matter, Yun Chuzhia's heart suddenly moved and she smiled. Yun Chuzhou shook her head with a smile. She really thought she was smart. The gigolo had broken the seal, not lost his memory. How could he have become so arrogant and brainless? He was indeed arrogant, but his scheming heart had not changed. What he said was clearly a provocation. If he had taken the initiative to bring Xue Wuji away, Xue Wuji would definitely take Chao away, and he would definitely complain in the future. However, now that Xue Wuji had taken the initiative to bring Xue Wuji away, the initiative was in Di Baiming's hands. He was really cunning. After Yun Chuzhou thought this through, the worry in her heart towards Di Baiming lessened a lot. Her mood also became bright and beautiful. This fellow's mood became better, and he began to think about his own matters. She did not come to the primordial chaos sect to start a fire. Moreover, she had to wake up early every day. It was really troublesome. She had to think of a way to get out of the current predicament. Yun Chuzhou looked at the area that Fatty Song and Fatty Luo were in charge of. Each of the two fatties had about 10 people under them. Only Old Man Yao had the 3 of them. They could not even take shifts if they wanted to. Therefore, that afternoon, Yun Chuzhou picked up the large kitchen knife and began to kill the chickens again. After this fellow killed the chickens, he directly threw the bloody dead chickens at the feet of Fatty Song and Fatty Luo. As he threw it, he muttered, this person can't be too heartless. Some people occupy more than 10 subordinates, while some honest people only have 3 helpers. Don't tell me that some people's consciences don't hurt? The chicken in the cage clucked. Was this brat a monkey? Why did she have to go against the chickens? Fatty Song and Fatty Luo were so angry that they couldn't stand it anymore. Yun Chuzhou, what do you want? Don't be too greedy. I don't want anything. Logically speaking, shouldn't the 3 chefs in the kitchen be divided equally among the servants? Why are there so many of you and only 3 of Old Yao's subordinates? If you each give me 2 people, I won't kill the chickens. Otherwise, not only will I kill all the chickens, I'll also kill the rabbit in the cage. Moreover, I knocked on the copper basin and went outside to shout at him. I said that you guys are ganging up to bully honest people and that you want to extort my spirit stones. Shut up. I'll just give it to you. The 2 fatties were extremely regretful. If they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have had any intentions of taking this smelly girl's spirit stones. But now they had failed to steal the chicken, and instead they were being pinched by this smelly girl. What bad luck. The 2 fatties each chose 2 useless things to give to Old Man Yao. Old Man Yao didn't say anything, only nodding his head and instructing them to start work at 3 p.m. The 4 of them were drooping their heads. If they followed the 2 chefs, they would still have a chance to go to the small canteen. If they followed this Old Man Yao, they would probably be stuck in this big kitchen for the rest of their lives. Moreover, they had to wake up early every day. They were really unlucky. It was all because of that Yun Chuzhou. If it weren't for her meddling, How would they have ended up in this situation? Just as the four of them were cursing in their hearts, they saw Yoon Chujo come over and said with a smile, "Are you cursing me in your hearts? I heard everything." The four of them. What the hell? They had already said that they were cursing in their hearts, so how could she have heard it? Because if you follow Elder Yao, you won't be able to go to the small canteen, and you have to wake up early, so why are you scolding me for being nosy? Do you think that all of this is because of me? Although the four of them were a little surprised that Yoon Chuji's guess was correct, it was not difficult to guess, so they kept quiet with gloomy faces. Seeing that the four of them didn't say anything, Yoon Chujo turned around and brought a chicken over. The four of them immediately stopped pretending to be dumb. She explained, "Junior sister Yoon, you're thinking too much. We're just not used to it for a while. Actually, it's quite good to be at Elder Yao's place. After all, we're free in the afternoon and can be used to cultivate. Yeah, and we don't need to cook for breakfast. It's not tiring to work." The four of them talked and felt that it was not so unacceptable to transfer to Old Man Yao's place. Yoon Chujo held the clucking red feather chicken. She said with a smile, "That's the way to think. The 7 of us are divided into 2 shifts, 1 shift a day. The 4 of you will take 1 shift and the 3 of us will take 1 shift. You guys are taking advantage of us." The 4 of them were stunned at first, then they became happy from the bottom of their hearts. This meant that they could rest the next day. It was the best. As long as their cultivation could improve, it did not matter whether they went to the small canteen or not. After all, the handymen in the small canteen were also handymen. How could they have the prestige of becoming an outer disciple in the future? "Little girl, are you almost done? Come and learn how to make noodles." A glimmer of light flashed in Old Man Yao's eyes at the side, and in the blink of an eye, he became drowsy again. Yoon Chujo clutched her stomach. "Oh, Old Man Yao, my stomach hurts again. No, I have to go to the toilet. I'll be back soon." After saying that, Yoon Chujo ran away. Old Man Yao shook his head and looked at the 4 new people. He pointed at a person and said, "Since that little girl ran away, you can come." That person wanted to cry, but no tears came out. This was a sudden disaster. After Yoon Chujo covered her stomach and ran out of the big kitchen, Jinji and Yi Bingyu also took the opportunity to sneak out. The 3 of them looked at each other and smiled. "Little Joe, where are we going now?" "I heard that the library of the Hunyuan sect is very big. Let's go to the library and have a look." The reason why Yoon Chujo wanted to go to the library was to see if there were any records of Guai Chao. It was also not bad to look for books on alchemy and talismans. Jinji and Yi Bingyu nodded and the 3 of them walked towards the library. There was only one library in the primordial chaos sect. It was located halfway up the main peak, Tianshu Peak. The disciples of the other 6 peaks could only go here if they wanted to read. Therefore, there were many disciples waiting in line in front of the library. Finally, it was Yoon Chujo and the other 2. The disciple who was guarding the library took the jade tokens from the 3 of them and examined them. Then, he threw the jade tokens to the 3 of them and said contemptuously, "Your sect contribution points are not enough. Come again when you have them." Yoon Chujo and the other 2 were confused. What the hell was a sect contribution point? Was it like the academy points? Just as Yoon Chujo was about to ask again, the disciple said impatiently, "If you don't understand, then go to the General Affairs office and buy a copy of the complete works of the Primordial Chaos sect." Seriously, why did you come to the library if you don't understand anything? What can you understand? If it was in the past, Yoon Chujo would definitely kill such a clown with lightning speed. Now she felt that it was not worth wasting her time on these people. She immediately brought Jinji and Yi Bingyu to the General Affairs office. She spent 10 spirit stones to buy a copy of the complete works of the Primordial Chaos sect. The sect contribution points were similar to what Yoon Chujo had guessed. It was something similar to points. However, the sect contribution points were extremely important in the Primordial Chaos sect. Many places required the sect contribution points. There were two ways to obtain sect contribution points. One was to complete a mission issued by the sect or an individual, and the other was the sect's reward. After Yun Chujio and the other two had a general understanding of the situation, they went to the mission announcement board outside the General Affairs office to check the missions that could be accepted. Yun Chujio skimmed through it. Many of the missions were limited, and at the end they were labeled as inner or outer disciples. There weren't many missions that were allowed for handymen. After all, handymen couldn't leave the sect, and their spiritual power was low. All they could do was some physical work. Yun Chujio finally set her eyes on a mission that Tianji Peak had just issued, which was to raise snow jade silkworms. She heard from the handyman who came for breakfast that Mu Wu was no longer in charge of the snow jade silkworms because of his eye injury. Instead, he was in charge of another disciple. However, none of the odd-job workers were willing to work in the mulberry garden. After all, the snow jade silkworms had been restless recently and often attacked people. That was why there was a mission to raise the snow jade silkworms on the mission board, and the contribution points that were marked at the back were 100 points. One had to know that such a low-level mission usually only had 10 contribution points. Yun Chujio weighed the pros and cons in her heart, and finally decided to accept the mission. Therefore, she took the identity jade tokens of the three of them and scanned the mission. The mission became dark, which meant that someone had already accepted the mission. As it was already late, Yun Chujio decided to report to the mulberry garden the next day. After leaving the General Affairs office, Yi Bingyu asked in puzzlement Little Jiu, if we go to raise snow jade silkworms, what about the work in the canteen? Isn't that simple? We can just spend money to hire people. You have to know that the spiritual energy in the mulberry garden is much denser than in the big kitchen. It's very beneficial for your cultivation. Moreover, the wool comes from the sheep. I just need to get some cocoons to pay for the hire. Jinji and Yi Bingyu looked at each other. Was that what Yingguo said? Yun Chujio arrived at Old Man Yao's courtyard and shouted, Old Yao, are you there? Old Man Yao walked out of the courtyard while coughing. He sized up Yun Chujio and said, Little girl, do you need something from me? Yun Chujio said with a smile, Old Man Yao, this is the deer leg that I roasted in the back mountain, and this gourd spirit wine is a gift for you. Old Man Yao took the thing over, opened the cork of the wine gourd and smelled it. The wrinkles on his face relaxed a little. Tell me, what do you need from me? Old Man Yao, the three of us accepted the task of raising snow jade silkworms issued by Mulberry Garden today. It will last for a month. When the snow jade silkworms have cocooned, we will complete the task. Don't worry, I will hire someone to complete the task in the kitchen. It will definitely not delay your work. Can you please do us a favor? Yun Chujio said with a smile. Old Man Yao's eyes flickered. Raise snow jade silkworms? I heard that the silkworms have been very irritated recently and have attacked several people. Aren't you afraid of being attacked? Old Man Yao, aren't the servants all men? I think the snow jade silkworms are lustful. They won't lose their temper when they see us three pretty girls. The corners of Elder Yao's eyes twitched. He coughed and said, In that case, you can go. However, don't blame me for not reminding you. The snow jade silkworm is the treasure of Tianji Peak. If you kill a few of them like killing chickens, you won't be able to bear the consequences. Yun Chujio giggled. Old Man Yao, don't worry. The snow jade silkworms can't be eaten. Why would I kill them if I have nothing to do? It's getting late, I want to disturb your rest, I'm leaving. Old Man Yao waved his hand, and Yun Chujio hopped away. Old Man Yao looked at Yun Chujio's back and shook his head with a smile. This little girl really knew how to cause trouble. He hoped that she wouldn't cause any trouble. The next morning, Yun Chujio went to the kitchen and told the four servants about her idea. Hearing the amount of spiritual stones that Yun Chujio promised, the four servants agreed immediately. Since the four of them could be divided into two classes, it wasn't a big deal to be a little tired. After Yun Chujio arranged the work in the kitchen, she took Jinji and Yi Bingyu to Tianji Peak. Hey look! The chopping board has become a spirit. What chopping board has become a spirit? It's Yun Chujio's flying spiritual device. I've seen it once before. She's not working in the big kitchen. What's she doing there? I heard that she accepted the task of raising snow jade silkworms on Tianji Peak. I guess she's going to Tianji Peak. What? Is there something wrong with her brain? She actually accepted the task of raising snow jade silkworms? I heard that all the servants on Tianji Peak avoid her. Even Huaji, who took over the mulberry garden, didn't want to. However, the higher-ups arranged it, so he had no choice but to accept it. Yun Chuzhou probably has money to burn, right? Let's just wait and see. Yun Chuzhou and the other two landed on the square of Tianji Peak and walked to Mulberry Garden. Along the way, they were criticized by many people. Half of them thought that she was stupid, so they accepted the mission to raise snow jade silkworms, and the other half thought that Yun Chuzhou accepted the mission for Fan Mingchuan. Although Fan Mingchuan had said that they were not engaged, everyone thought that there was no smoke without fire. Yun Chuzhou and Fan Mingchuan must have been childhood sweethearts. Yun Chuzhou quickly felt the hostility of some female disciples. Their gazes were like knives as they stabbed at her. Yun Chuzhou found it funny in her heart. She did not expect Fan Mingchuan to have so many fangirls. She wondered if these people were blind. As they pointed and pointed along the way, the three of them arrived at the mulberry garden. The door of the mulberry garden was open from the inside. A man dressed in the uniform of an inner sect disciple shouted impatiently, "Didn't the three of you accept the mission yesterday? Why are you only here today? Hurry up and come in and work." After Yun Chuzhou and the other two entered the mulberry garden, the disciple directly brought them into a room. Pointing inside, he said, "Every morning, you put these snow jade silkworms on the golden silk mulberry trees. Each tree can only put 20 of them, and you have to keep a certain distance from each other. Before sunset at night, put the snow jade silkworms back into this silkworm room and put some fresh golden silk mulberry leaves. I still have something to do, hurry up." After the man finished speaking, he left in a hurry without waiting for the three of them to ask about some important matters. "Little Joe, why do I feel that he wants us to take the blame? There won't be any problems with the snow jade silkworms, right?" Jinji said with a frown. Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes and didn't say anything. Instead, she picked up a snow jade silkworm. After the disciple in charge of the mulberry garden left the silkworm room, he heaved a sigh of relief. He had finally found 3 scapegoats. That bastard Mu Wu clearly did not have a serious injury to his eyes, but he pretended to be very serious and threw this hot potato to him. It was really detestable. The disciple in charge of the mulberry garden was called Huaji. After Mu Wu was injured, he was sent to the mulberry garden. The mulberry garden was originally the best job. Since the snow jade silkworm was the treasure of Tianji Peak, the disciples in charge of the mulberry garden would get some extra resources from the sect. Moreover, the specific work was done by the odd job workers. The disciples in charge were just supervisors, so it was very easy. However, it was different now. Recently, these snow jade silkworms had been inexplicably irritated. The higher-ups of Tianji Peak had asked beast tamers to check on them, but they couldn't find the reason. After all, beast tamers couldn't control adult demon insects, therefore, they didn't know why these snow jade silkworms were so irritated. What was more depressing was that no odd job workers were willing to come to work. Therefore, Huaji had been moving these snow jade silkworms around on his own for the past few days. When he moved them around, he had to be 120% careful to avoid being hurt by the venom of the snow jade silkworms. Unfortunately, he was still attacked by a snow jade silkworm 2 days ago. Fortunately, he had set up a spiritual energy barrier in advance, so he wasn't injured. Furious, Huaji killed the snow jade silkworm with 1 palm strike. Huaji knew that he had caused trouble. These snow jade silkworms were the treasures of Tianji Peak. The elders would come to check the number and condition of the snow jade silkworms on a regular basis. If one of them was found missing, he would be punished. Killing a snow jade silkworm would not only cost him a year's worth of resources, but he would also have to spend at least 3 months in meditation. After much thought, he finally came up with a solution. Therefore, he posted the mission on the bulletin board of the General Affairs Department. He paid for the 300 contribution points himself, not the official contribution points of Tianji Peak. Huiji's plan was very effective. Those 3 idiots didn't know anything. When the elder came to check on them the next day, he would push the blame onto the 3 of them and clear his name. The next morning, when Yun Chuzhou and the other 2 were about to move the snow jade silkworms out of the silkworm room, Huiji came in and stopped them. Today is the day of the regular inspection of the elders in the peak. Don't move these snow jade silkworms outside for now. Wait for the elder to check them before moving them out. Yun Chuzhou and the other 2 nodded. They went out to get some fresh golden silk mulberry leaves and placed them in the silkworm room. Huiji looked on coldly from the side and sneered in his heart. They were really 3 idiots. When he heard that Yun Chuzhou was very smart during the test, he was still a little worried. He was afraid that Yun Chuzhou would see through his intentions, so he left in a hurry yesterday. Now it seemed that those people were just exaggerating. She was just a little girl. How powerful could she be? After a while, someone called for the door outside the mulberry garden. Huiji brought Yun Chuzhou and the other 2 out to welcome them. There were 3 elders standing outside the door. Huiji quickly bowed. Disciple Huiji greets Elder Jiang, Elder Ding and Elder Wan. Yun Chuzhou and the other 2 followed behind Huiji and bowed. The 3 elders nodded and then looked at Yun Chuzhou and the other 2. Aren't they the odd job workers in the peak? The 3 of them accepted the task given by the disciple at the odd job office, so they came to raise the snow jade silkworm. Huiji answered respectfully. Elder Wan frowned. What nonsense! They don't have any experience in raising the snow jade silkworm. What if something goes wrong? Aren't there a lot of odd job workers in our peak? Is there no one willing to come? If it's really not possible, increase the treatment. Huiji nodded repeatedly in agreement. Disciple will observe them for a few days first. If it's not possible, Disciple will think of a way to replace the odd job workers on our peak. Elder Ding smiled and said, Old Wan, don't make things difficult for him. Right now, almost the entire primordial chaos sect knows that these snow jade silkworms can attack people. So many odd job workers aren't willing to come over. Let's go and take a look at the condition of the snow jade silkworms first. As for the 3 of them, let's observe them first. Elder Jiang echoed from the side. That's right, Old Wan. Let's take a look at our treasures first. In another month, these snow jade silkworms will spin their cocoons. When they break out of their cocoons, they will mate and we will have a few dozen more snow jade silkworms. Yun Chuzhou was puzzled. There were 500 to 600 snow jade silkworms in the silkworm room. Why would there only be a few dozen silkworms after mating? Could it be that these 3 people didn't know how to count? As everyone spoke, they arrived at the silkworm room. The 3 elders began to count the number of snow jade silkworms. Huiji's palms began to sweat. Although he already had someone to blame, he was still a little nervous about being a thief. Isn't there 601 snow jade silkworms on the register? Why is there one missing? Could it be that we counted wrong? Elder Ding said in surprise. Counted again. Elder Jiang said with a frown. The 3 of them counted again, but there was still one missing. Their faces immediately darkened. Elder One shouted sternly, Huiji, what's going on? How can there be one less snow jade silkworm? Huiji's face revealed a frightened expression. How is this possible? When I handed it to the 3 of them yesterday, I even counted the number. There were exactly 601 snow jade silkworms. How could there be one less? The 3 of you quickly tell us the truth. What exactly is going on? Hearing Huiji's words, Elder Wan's face turned even gloomier. I told you that it's not reliable to look for odd job workers from the outer peaks. Look, one snow jade silkworm is missing in just one day. If this goes on for a long time, what will happen? The 3 of you are really audacious. Tell me, where's that snow jade silkworm? Did you accidentally kill it so you destroyed its corpse and erased all traces? Elder Ding and Elder Jiang didn't say anything, but they looked at Yun Chuzhou and the other 2 unhappily. It was a big mistake to kill the snow jade silkworm by accident, and they were even more guilty for hiding the truth. These 3 handymen were too bold. Elders, we are just 3 handymen. How dare we kill the treasures of Tianji Peak? Besides, when we came here yesterday, Senior Brother Hua didn't count the number of snow jade silkworms with us, so we should ask Senior Brother Hua about the missing one, right? Yun Chujo said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Huaji immediately stomped his feet and said, "You're talking nonsense. I clearly counted the number of snow jade silkworms in front of you yesterday, and it just so happened to be 601. 3 elders, if you want to count the number of snow jade silkworms, you need at least 15 minutes, right? After Senior Brother Hua brought us to the silkworm room yesterday, he left in a hurry. How could he have time to count the number of snow jade silkworms? If the 3 elders don't believe me, you can ask the disciples who were watching the show outside the mulberry garden yesterday, Yun Chujo said with a faint smile. Cold sweat immediately broke out on Huaji's forehead. He was in a hurry to leave yesterday and had not considered this point. If he asked, he would be exposed. Elder Ding saw Huaji's nervous expression and Yun Chujo and the other two's magnanimous expressions and had some doubts in his heart. He immediately took out his identity jade token and asked someone to find a few disciples who were watching yesterday to bring them over. Huaji's legs were trembling. Once the matter was exposed, the punishment he would receive would not only be 3 months of reflection, occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. After a while, 5 or 6 disciples were brought in. When Yun Chujo saw these disciples, she knew it was bad. Because these disciples were all female disciples, and coincidentally, they were Fan Mingquan's admirers. As expected, after hearing the 3 elders' questions, these people said one after another, "This Yun Chujo is talking nonsense." Yesterday, Senior Brother Hua clearly left the mulberry garden after an hour. That's right. At that time, someone even spoke to Senior Brother Hua. Senior Brother Hua said that he was counting the number of snow jade silkworms, and he also told them some things to take note of. Yes, that's right. I can also prove it. Hearing their words, Huaji heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. The expression on his face also became aggrieved and angry. 3 elders, you all heard it, right? This Yun Chujo made a mistake, yet she still wants to bite back. It's really too sinister. I hope the 3 elders can uphold justice for this disciple. Elder Wan flew into a rage. This is truly outrageous. What else do the 3 of you have to say? Men, send the 3 of them to the law enforcement office. Tell them that my suggestion is to remove their names. Our primordial chaos sect does not allow such scum to exist. Elder Ding and Elder Jiang exchanged a glance. Elder Ding said, "Old Wan, this punishment is a little heavy, right? Normally, killing a snow jade silkworm should be punished with less than a year's worth of resources. Furthermore, they should be locked up in meditation for 3 months. Humph. But after they made a mistake, not only did they hide the truth, but they also slandered their fellow disciples. They must be punished severely to prevent others from doing the same," Elder Wan said angrily. Hearing his words, Elder Ding and Elder Jiang didn't say anything, although they still felt that it was a bit heavy. After all, they were just 3 odd job workers and they weren't from Tianji Peak. If they were expelled from the sect, so be it. The female disciples who testified showed gloating expressions. Damn it. Who asked Yun Chujo to charm Senior Brother Fan? Let's see how she can seduce Senior Brother Fan this time. Jinji and Yi Bingyu weren't worried when they saw Yun Chuji's confident look. However, when they saw that Elder Wan had convicted them, they panicked and looked at Yun Chujo nervously. At this time, there were already disciples who wanted to bring the 3 of them to the law enforcement office. Yun Chujo curled the corners of her lips. Wait, I have something to say. Elder Wan frowned. What else do you have to say? Elders, I have a witness that can prove who killed the missing snow jade silkworm, Yun Chujo said slowly. Everyone was stunned. Huaji's heart trembled and he immediately relaxed. This Yun Chujo must be spouting nonsense. When he killed the snow jade silkworm, he was the only one in the mulberry garden. How could there be a witness? Elder Wan frowned. You have a witness? Who is your witness? Are you trying to stall for time? Yun Chujo smiled faintly. She turned around and pointed at the silkworm room behind her. The snow jade silkworm in the silkworm room is my witness. When their companion died, they naturally saw it with their own eyes. Therefore, wouldn't it be more direct to have them directly identify the murderer? Everyone was stunned at first. Then the female disciples began to giggle. Yun Chujo, are you out of your mind? Although the snow jade silkworm are demonic insects, they have been domesticated by humans for many generations. They are different from those demonic insects in the wild. They don't have a silkworm king, so they don't have group consciousness. How could they identify the murderer? Elder Ding and Elder Jiang also shook their heads, and Elder Wan's face turned even gloomier. Nonsense. Take them away. Yun Chujo sneered. How can we know if we can do it if we don't try? Is Tianji Peak trying to slander the foreign laborers? If the other 6 peaks find out, they'll laugh at you. You. How dare you? Good. Since you're so stubborn, it'll make you give up. Someone bring out a basket of snow jade silkworms, Elder Wan said angrily. Hearing Elder Wan's words, a disciple went in and brought out a basket of snow jade silkworms. There were about 20 snow-white snow jade silkworms in the basket, and they were munching on the golden silk mulberry leaves. Elder Wan glared at Yun Chujo. Now that the snow jade silkworms have been brought out, tell me, how do we get them to identify the murderer? Yun Chujo curled the corners of her lips. The suspects are Huaji and the 3 of us. Then the 4 of us will crouch around the basket. Whoever the snow jade silkworms attack will naturally be the murderer. Although Elder Wan felt that this method was ridiculous, he was now in a rage. He was anxious to prove that Yun Chujo was talking nonsense, so he said to Huaji, according to what she said, all of you will crouch around the basket. Even though Huaji felt guilty, he felt that these snow jade silkworms would only mate with each other during mating season. They usually did their own thing, so they wouldn't point fingers and take revenge. Therefore, he crouched beside the bamboo basket with ease. Yun Chujo and the other 2 also crouched beside the bamboo basket. Everyone heard Yun Chujo say in a crisp voice, repay kindness with kindness, and take revenge with hatred. Little babies, who killed your companions? Just take revenge. Everyone scoffed at this. There was an 80% chance that Yun Chujo was mentally ill. Did she really think that these snow jade silkworms would identify the murderer just because she said a few words? Sure enough, the snow jade silkworms inside the bamboo basket were still eating the mulberry leaves with a rustling sound. They did not make any movements. Elder One snorted coldly. Just as he was about to let the 4 of them stand up, the snow jade silkworms suddenly raised their heads and sprayed several streams of venom at Huaji. Huaji was caught off guard and was hit by the spray. Moreover, he was squatting, so all the venom was sprayed on his face. Immediately, Huaji screamed in pain and covered his face as he began to roll on the ground. Yun Chujo quickly moved the bamboo basket away, afraid that he would accidentally hurt the snow jade silkworms. Elder Ding saw Yun Chuji's actions and thought deeply. This little girl seemed to care about the snow jade silkworms, so the missing snow jade silkworms should not have been her doing. Elder Ding did not know that Yun Chujo had already treated these snow jade silkworms as her own. This girl was even prepared to pluck the wool. How could she let anything happen to these snow jade silkworms? Everyone was stunned by this unexpected turn of events. For a moment no one spoke. Only Huaji's continuous screams of pain could be heard. Elder Ding reacted faster. He asked his disciple to quickly take out an antidote pill for Huaji to swallow, and then use cold water to wash his face. However, his injury was too serious. It would take at least a year or so for his face to recover. Yun Chujo smiled faintly. Elders, the truth is out now, right? Isn't it time to clear our names? Huaji screamed and said, don't listen to her nonsense. This is an accident. She framed me. Yun Chujo curled her lips. Accident? Why don't we do it again? This time you and the others will squat here and see what the snow jade silkworm will do? When Elder Wan heard Yun Chujia's words for some unknown reason, he actually pulled Huiji over and squatted down beside the bamboo basket. The few of you come over too will verify it. Elder Wan beckoned the few female disciples over. Although the few female disciples were extremely displeased, they did not dare to resist and could only squat down. Yun Chujio really wanted to take care of these little bastards, but now was not the time to stir up trouble. So she could only order the snow jade silkworm to attack Huiji. A moment later, Huiji's face was sprayed with a few more streams of venom, and some of the snow jade silkworms even jumped up, wanting to bite Huiji. Elder Wan stood up, gnashing his teeth and interrogating Huiji. Tell me, what exactly is going on? If you don't answer truthfully, I can only use the soul-searching technique. Elder Wan was obviously trying to scare Huiji. After all, the soul-searching technique was extremely vicious. How could he really use it? However, Huiji was already in unbearable pain from the poison of the snow jade silkworm. How could he endure the pressure from Elder Wan? He immediately cried out and told the truth. The female disciples who were helping Huiji to testify turned pale. They were completely regretful. They originally thought that they could use this matter to expel Yun Chujio from the primordial chaos sect. Now they were afraid that they would not be able to escape punishment. Elder Wan was so angry that he kicked Huiji away. He felt that he had nowhere to put his face. If Yun Chujio had not thought of a way to make the snow jade silkworms testify, he would have wronged them. Elder Ding and Elder Jiang also looked embarrassed. For a moment no one said anything. Yun Chujio said in a crisp voice, "Elders, it's getting late. We need to put these snow jade silkworms on the golden mulberry tree. What do you think?" Elder Ding knew that Yun Chujio was giving them a way out, so he said, "If that's the case, you guys go ahead and get busy. Don't worry, we will definitely give you an explanation." Yun Chujio nodded. "Elder Ding, it's too serious. We are just handymen. It doesn't matter if we don't give an explanation. As long as we can successfully complete our mission in this month, we will be very satisfied." Elder Ding said a few more words dryly, and then asked someone to escort Huiji out of the mulberry garden. "Little Joe, you scared me." Fortunately, these snow jade silkworms know the good guys and bad guys. Otherwise, we would be in trouble. Yi Bingyu didn't know that Yun Chujio could control the demonic insects. Yun Chujio said with a smile, "This is called the heavenly net, which is slow and thorough. Good will be rewarded with evil. Alright, let's get to work." At noon, because Jinji and Yi Bingyu were keeping an eye on the mulberry garden, Yun Chujio planned to take a good look around Tianji Peak. Of course, this guy wasn't idle. They couldn't stay in the kitchen all the time. Sooner or later, they had to choose one of the 7 peaks, so it was necessary to know about it beforehand. On the way, Yun Chujio heard about the punishment of Huiji and those female disciples. Huiji was immediately expelled from the primordial chaos sect. The female disciples were punished with a year's worth of sect resources for perjury, and they were also punished with a month's worth of reflection. Although Yun Chujio felt that the punishment for the female disciples was a little light, it was not bad for Tianji Peak to do this. Some disciples of Tianji Peak saw Yun Chujio wandering around. Although they pointed at her, no one dared to say anything in front of Yun Chujio. After all, a barefooted person was not afraid of wearing shoes. This Yun Chujio was extraordinarily bold. It would not be worth it if she stuck to her. Therefore, Yun Chujio was unimpeded on Tianji Peak. Just as the Guai Chao was about to return to the mulberry garden to help collect the snow jade silkworm, the strange grass in its dantian suddenly started to clamor. It was so excited that if Yun Chujio didn't do what it wanted, it would rebel. Yun Chujio cursed angrily, but she was afraid that the Guai Chao would take control of her body and do something, so she could only follow the Guai Chao's directions. Some disciples of Tianji Peak looked at the direction Yun Chujio was going in and gloated. This Yun Chujio really wanted to die. How dare she go to the forbidden area? Some people's eyes flickered, and they turned around and left quickly. Yun Chujio frowned. Why did it feel more desolate as they walked? Where was the Guai Chao taking her? She saw a lonely courtyard in the distance, surrounded by weeds. Obviously, it had been abandoned for many years. There were 3 simple words written on the plaque of the courtyard Guaichao. Yun Chujiu frowned. She knew that there was a Guaichao in the Chaos Origin sect. Why was there a Guaichao here? There was also a stone tablet in front of the courtyard. On it, there were 2 big words written in cinnabar, Forbidden Area. Forbidden Area? It was likely that there was danger or some unspeakable secret inside. It was better to leave as soon as possible. Just as Yun Chujiu was about to leave, the strange grass in her dantian attacked. Yun Chujiu sadly found that her feet were approaching Guaichao step by step. Yun Chujiu cursed angrily, "Go away ba! Are you acting up again? If I die, don't even think about it." Guaichao formed its leaves into the shape of a heart and tried to act cute. However, it still controlled its body and gradually approached the courtyard. Yun Chujiu was so angry that she was twitching. "I'll promise you to enter the courtyard. Return the control of your body to me. Otherwise, you'll be like a headless fly and I won't be able to save my life." Guaichao's leaves swayed. It was obvious that it was thinking about Yun Chujiu's words. In the end, it still returned the control of its body to Yun Chujiu. Yun Chujiu wanted to turn around and run, but she knew Guaichao's temper. She was afraid that she would not be able to run far before she was brought back by it, so she could only give up the idea of escaping. Yun Chujiu was afraid that there was some kind of formation or mechanism in the House of Reflection. After setting up the spiritual energy shield, she used the elongated rolling pin to push open the courtyard door. She did not know how many years it had been since someone had opened the courtyard door. As soon as she pushed it open, a lot of dust fell. The courtyard was also full of weeds. It was quiet inside, only the sound of the breeze blowing through the weeds. The yard was very spacious with 1 main room and 6 side rooms. However, the windowsill on the roof was covered with weeds. It was obvious that no one had lived there for many years. Yun Chujiu walked around the yard and did not find anything unusual. Why was this place called Guaichao? Was it specially used to make people think? While Yun Chujiu was thinking about it, the strange grass began to clamor. Yun Chujiu had no choice but to follow its instructions and use a rolling pin to push away the main room. There was nothing special about the furnishings in the room, only that the utensils were covered in dust. Yun Chujiu pushed open the door to the bedroom. There was only a wooden bed and a desk inside, and there was nothing unusual. "Go away ba, do you see it? There is nothing here. Are you sick?" Yun Chujiu said to the Guaichao with her spiritual sense. Guaichao's leaves trembled. It was obviously guilty. It clearly smelled something delicious, but why was there nothing? When Yun Chujiu saw the Guaichao's appearance, she knew that he had a guilty conscience. Yun Chujiu did not have the time to curse at Guaichao. She remembered that when she came here, many disciples had seen her. Someone would definitely report her for breaking into the forbidden area. It was better to leave quickly. Just as Yun Chujiu was about to leave, she heard footsteps coming from outside. Her heart sank. Oh no! No matter what sect she was in, trespassing into a forbidden area was a serious crime. What should she do? Should she hide inside the Great Void Mirror? However, the people from the Hunyuan sect were not stupid. With just a glance, one could tell that the courtyard door had been opened by someone. Moreover, there were her footprints. No matter what, it was impossible to explain clearly. What should she do? Yun Chujiu, come out. You actually dared to trespass into a forbidden area. Wait for your punishment. That's right. Do you want us to go in and catch you? Come out if you know what's good for you. Just as Yun Chujiu was getting anxious, she heard the door of a side room open. Someone said, "What's going on? Why did you trespass into the forbidden area?" "Greetings, elderly. I heard someone report that Yun Chujiu trespassed into this place. That's why I came here to check. Since you're here, it means that the information is wrong. Well, leave now." "Okay, leave. Don't come near this place in case of danger." Yun Chujiu saw an old man standing in the middle of the courtyard through the crack in the door, and the disciples of Tianji Peak all left. Yoon Chujio couldn't figure out Elder Lee's intention, so why would he cover for her? While Yoon Chujio was still confused, she saw Elder Lee take out a disc array and activate it. Then he said, "Little girl, come out, it's okay." Although Yoon Chujio did not know what Elder Lee meant, she had no other choice but to force herself to leave the house. Elder Lee's expression was very gentle. "Little girl, why did you come to this forbidden area for no reason?" I just wandered around and got lost. I made a big mistake out of curiosity. Thank you for covering for me," Yoon Chujio said as she bowed. Elder Lee smiled. "You little girl, you're really fearless. I like your character. You're just in time. Come help me." After Elder Lee finished speaking, he walked to the side room and pushed the door open. Yoon Chujio realized that after the door was pushed open, not a single speck of dust fell. This meant that this side room was often used by people. Yoon Chujio followed Elder Lee into the room. After Elder Lee closed the door, he took out another disc array and activated it. The gentle smile on his face turned into a sneer. "Yoon Chujio, you are really courting death. You actually came here. Do you want to end it yourself, or do you want me to kill you? Are you a member of the Divine Devil Hall?" Elder Lee saw that Yoon Chujio's face did not show any signs of panic and said with some surprise, "Why aren't you panicking at all? Don't tell me you know that I am a member of the Divine Devil Hall?" "I didn't know before, but now I know." As for why she was not panicking, the reason was very simple. Compared to dealing with those people from before, it was much easier to deal with you. After all, as long as I kill you and burn this place to ashes, no one will be able to trace it back to me, Yoon Chujio said with a smile. Her words were cold to the bone. Elder Lee was first stunned, then he laughed sinisterly. "Smelly girl. You're really arrogant to the extreme. Kill me? You, a 6th level Ling Xian, can kill me? I've already set up an array here. Your talismans are useless, die." After hearing Elder Lee's words, Yoon Chujio bared her little white teeth. "Who's dead and who's alive? Why don't we just try and find out? Look at the hidden weapons." As Yoon Chujio said that, she threw a bag of things at Elder Lee. Elder Lee raised his spiritual energy barrier and dodged to the side. The chili flew out, but it did not harm Elder Lee in the slightest. Elder Lee said disdainfully, "Stupid girl, your stupid chili pepper is useless against me. Not only is it useless against me, no one will fall for your trick in the future." "Yo, I didn't expect that the people of the Divine Devil Hall would still improve. Let me ask you, as an elder of the Primordial Chaos Sect, why are you willing to work for the Divine Devil Hall? Are you out of your mind?" Yoon Chujio dodged Elder Lee's attack. She said with a cheeky smile on her face, "Humph. It's my honor to serve my lord. How can ants like you understand? Cut the crap and accept your death." TSK. Anyone with a brain knows that the Divine Devil Hall is not a good thing. You actually ruined your bright future and went to them. I advise you to turn back. "Shut up. What? Are you moved by my words? Let me tell you, the Divine Devil Hall is like a rabbit's tail that can't grow. The grasshopper after autumn won't be able to jump for more than a few days. You'd better hurry up and repent." "You're talking nonsense." "How am I talking nonsense? Let's not talk about anything else. I've already jumped 3 continents, but didn't your Divine Devil Hall still fail to kill me? What does this mean?" "This means that the Divine Devil Hall is not tolerated by Tian Dao. Sooner or later, all of you will be completely finished." You, what do you mean by you? You've already lived for so long in vain. You actually chose a path of no return. You're really stupid to the extreme. If that bullshit master of yours is really so powerful, why didn't he take action and kill all of us? Instead, he let you punks come out and throw your lives away? This can only mean that he is just bluffing. In fact, he is nothing." Elder Lee's heart was in a mess because of Yoon Chujio's words. His attention was slightly distracted. Yoon Chujio's eyes deepened. This was the moment. Yoon Chujio raised her hand and all 5 spiritual pets were released. Even the kittens joined the battle. Xiaohong howled and used her seductive voice. Xiao Mogu used her mycelium to wrap around Elder Li's arms, while Xiao Hei used its claws to wrap around Elder Li's right foot. Xiao Heinio shot a fireball at Elder Li. Little kitten knew that it was too weak, so it climbed onto the roof beam and began to shoot small fireballs at Elder Li's head. It was good enough to burn his hair. Elder Li never dreamed that a person would have so many spiritual pets, so he was a little confused. A certain Zhou's spiritual pets were more and more abnormal, so he couldn't get rid of them. How could Yun Chuzhou let go of such an opportunity to attack? She waved her hands and several spiritual piglets pounced on Elder Li. Unfortunately, although Elder Li's hands were trapped, he had a defensive spiritual device on him, and the spiritual piglets were blocked by the defensive barrier. Moreover, Elder Li had also managed to break free from Xiao Mogu's mycelium. Xiao Hei was also sent flying with a kick. This was the difference in strength. Stupid girl, I didn't expect you to have so many strange spirit beasts. If I kill you, these will all belong to me. Elder Li was aroused by the ferocity. His eyes were red as he attacked Yun Chuzhou again. Both sides were fighting. Although Yun Chuzhou had the advantage in numbers, her strength was not enough. Yun Chuzhou could only grit her teeth and let Xiao Heinio use the curse technique. Just when Elder Li felt that victory was within his grasp, he suddenly stumbled and the cuties took the opportunity to trap Elder Li again. Yun Chuzhou's attack was once again blocked by Elder Li's defensive spiritual artifact. Yun Chuzhou secretly complained in her heart. She did not know what level of spiritual power this Elder Li had, but he was actually so difficult to deal with. Could it be that he really could only hide in the Great Void Mirror? After a series of battles, not only was Yun Chuzhou injured, even Xiao Heinio and the others were injured to varying degrees. Xiao Mogu's mycelium was also broken many times. Yun Chuzhou was afraid that the silly cubs' lives were in danger, so she quickly put Xiao Heinio and the other 4 into the spiritual beast bag. However, she forgot about the kitten on the beam. She forgot, but Elder Li did not forget. That damned kitten specifically shot fireballs at his hair. It was really courting death. Elder Li slapped the cat cub on the beam. By the time Yun Chuzhou wanted to save it, it was already too late. Yun Chuzhou's heart was filled with pain and regret. How could she have forgotten about the cat cub? With a slap from Elder Li, the cat cub would definitely not survive. The cat cub let out a shrill cry and fell off the beam. Yun Chuzhou leaped over and caught the cat cub. She saw that the cat cub was almost turned into a specimen by Elder Li's slap. The bones on its body were broken, and the corner of its mouth was full of blood. Yun Chuzhou quickly took out a pill and stuffed it into the kitten's mouth, hoping to save its life. Elder Li saw that Yun Chuzhou's attention was on the kitten, so he slapped Yun Chuzhou again. Before Yun Chuzhou could react, the kitten in her hand actually jumped up and took the slap on Yun Chuzhou's behalf. Elder Li used all his strength to hit the kitten. The kitten was sent flying and crashed into the enchantment. Then it collapsed on the ground and couldn't even scream. Humph! It's just a fire-breathing kitten. You really overestimate yourself. Elder Li said disdainfully. Kitten. Yun Chuzhou's head buzzed. If the kitten had a chance to survive just now, it wouldn't be able to survive now. Yun Chuzhou walked to the cat cub's side and sniffed. Sure enough, the cat cub was no longer breathing. Yun Chuzhou stood up and looked coldly at Elder Li. Elder Li pursed his lips. Smelly girl, this is only the beginning. In a while, you will be able to reunite with that cat cub. Yun Chuzhou had originally planned to hide in the Great Void Mirror, but now she was filled with hatred. Today, she had to kill the person in front of her to avenge the cat cub. Elder Li was frightened by Yun Chuzhou's cold killing intent and took a few steps back. Then he slapped Yun Chuzhou in anger. What a joke! Why would he be afraid of a stinky girl at the 6th level of the Lingxian realm? Just as Elder Li was thinking about it, he realized that Yun Chuzhou's eyes were flashing with purple lightning. How was this possible? How could there be purple lightning in a person's eyes? Elderly felt that his consciousness was starting to lose focus. His eyelids became heavier and heavier. He tried his best to open his eyes, but he couldn't. Yun Chujo didn't know why Elderly would suddenly lose focus. Of course, she didn't have the time to think about the reason. She attacked Elderly fiercely and finally, after breaking through the spiritual energy barrier, she used a large kitchen knife to chop off Elderly's head. Yun Chujo walked to the front of the kitten dejectedly. Looking at the kitten that had been flattened, tears fell from her eyes. It was all her negligence that caused the kitten to die. If she could put it into the spiritual beast bag in time, it would not have died. Aim! The kitten on the ground let out a weak cry. Yun Chujo looked at the kitten on the ground in disbelief. Could it be that the kitten was not dead? Meow, it hurts so much. The kitten whined. Kitten, you're not dead? Yun Chujo asked in surprise. Of course I'm not dead. Master, I took a hit for you. You have to reward me with at least 100 dried fish. The kitten said weakly. Yun Chujo smiled with tears in her eyes. How is 100 enough? I'll reward you with 200. Although the kitten was not dead, it was severely injured. It would probably not be able to live for a few months. Yun Chujo blamed herself. She decided that the next time she was in danger, it was better not to let the kitten out. It was too weak now. Yun Chujo put the kitten into the spiritual beast bag and found a jade plate engraved with the pattern of the spider lilies in Elderly's storage ring. She also found 2 array discs that were in operation. Yun Chujo stopped the 2 array discs and put them into her storage ring. The thing checked Elderly's storage ring again. When it saw the spiritual stones, it still held back. She let out the Xiao Hanyo and burned Elderly's body into ashes. There was only 1 storage ring left on the ground. Yun Chujo walked out of the house, and it was already dark. She rolled her eyes, jumped onto the roof and looked around. She definitely couldn't take the way she came because once she went out, she would be discovered. If she wanted to escape, she had to change directions. Yun Chujo looked behind Si Guoju. There was a cliff not far behind, and the opposite side of the cliff was very close to the mulberry garden. If she did not return to the dormitory at night, she could deal with it in the mulberry garden for a night. At this moment, the voice transmission talisman began to vibrate. Yun Chujo took it out and saw that it was Jinji's. She could not help but raise the corners of her mouth. This beauty Jinji was quite smart. She was afraid that her identity jade token would leave any traces, so she knew how to use the voice transmission talisman to communicate. The content of Jinji's voice transmission talisman was nothing more than worrying about Yun Chujo and asking her where she had gone. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes and said to Jinji, in order to take better care of the snow jade silkworm, I will be taking care of the snow jade silkworm in the mulberry garden tonight. Do you understand? Jinji understood immediately. I understand. If someone wants to ask, Bing you and I will say so. After Yun Chujo put away the voice transmission talisman, she was about to burn the Sigua residence and escape from the cliff when the Guai Chao started to act again. Seeing this, Yun Chujo cursed angrily, Go Weiba, are you done? If it weren't for you, would we be trapped here? If it weren't for you, would your kitten be seriously injured? What on earth do you want to do? Go Weiba shook its leaves guiltily, but it still stubbornly signaled Yun Chujo to go to the main room. Yun Chujo had no choice. She pushed open the door of the main room again and walked in. Yun Chujo looked around but still didn't find anything strange. Just as she was about to scold Guai Chao suddenly took control of her body. Fuck. Go Weiba, just you wait. It's not too late for little Jiu to take revenge. Let's wait and see. After Guai Chao gained control of her body, she walked to the wooden bed and sniffed around like a puppy. Yun Chujo was furious. In her heart, Guai Chao had risen to the top of the black ledger. Sooner or later, she would teach this shameless Go Weiba a lesson. After sniffing for a while, Guai Chao excitedly moved the wooden bed away, but she did not find anything unusual. She even moved away the green stone slabs on the ground, but she did not find anything strange. Guai Chao was jumping up and down anxiously. Yun Chujo saw that her body was like a monkey whose butt was on fire. She simply could not bear it. Go Weiba, get out here. I'll help you find it. Yun Chujo shouted sternly. Go Weiba leaves trembled. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to return the control of his body to Yun Chujo. Yun Chujo did not have the time to settle the score with Guai Chao. She knew that Guai Chao must have smelled the fragrance near the bed, so she carefully observed the situation around the bed. There did not seem to be anything unusual, and the green stone slab had already been lifted by the Guai Chao. So where did the fragrance come from? Yun Chujo frowned. There must be something strange here. She frowned, and her eyes lit up when she remembered the empty room she had once met in the Hall of the Dead. Yun Chujo carefully observed her own shadow. As expected, she found something strange in a corner. Although there was still some distance from the wooden bed, there should be a secret room under it. That thing might have been placed directly under the wooden bed, which was why Guai Chao mistakenly thought that it was under the bed. Yun Chujo opened the disc array that she got from Elder Li, and threw a sudden cracked talisman at the corner. After a loud rumble, a secret door appeared in the corner. Yun Chujo put away the formation plate, raised the spiritual energy barrier, and pushed open the secret door. She didn't expect a huge suction force to come from under the secret door. A certain Zhou rolled and crawled into it. Yun Chujo fell to the ground with a thud. Fortunately, she was protected by the spiritual energy barrier, so she wasn't injured. Yun Chujo stood up and took out the luminous pearl to illuminate. There were several steps leading to the top, and she rolled down from the steps. Yun Chujo was very nervous. What was that suction force just now? There were still living things inside? Hey, which senior is trapped here? This junior is here to save you. This fellow was very shrewd. No matter what, he wanted to gain a good impression first. However, no one returned. Yun Chujo was in a tunnel. This fellow could only rely on his courage to continue walking forward. He had no choice but to do so. Guai Chao was acting like a demon in his dantian, and it seemed like he would come out to control his body again. Drip, drip. Yun Chujo frowned. The sound of water? Why was there the sound of water dripping from below? Yun Chujo happened to catch a glimpse of the stone walls on both sides of the tunnel, and she could not help but turn pale with fright. There was actually an exquisite mural drawn on the stone walls, but when she saw the contents of the mural, she was so frightened that she sat on the ground. She saw that the mural depicted a woman, whose face was exactly the same as Yun Chuji's. The painting depicted a woman fighting with an old man. The old man was Elder Li. Yun Chujo swallowed her saliva and looked down. The painting below was Yun Chujo holding a kitten and crying. The old man had died not far away. Yun Chujo felt a chill on her back. She looked down and saw Yun Chujo climbing to the roof and talking with a voice transmission talisman. Yun Chuji's hand holding the luminous pearl was trembling. People were always afraid of the unknown. This was too unbelievable. Even if someone had just seen her every move, it was impossible to draw it immediately. Moreover, the murals on it seemed to have been there for a very, very long time. What was going on? Yun Chujo forced herself to calm down. She had already gone through countless storms. Would she be scared by the small murals? Yun Chujo had a flash of inspiration in her mind. She turned the luminous pearl onto the stone wall on the right. The contents on the wall shocked Yun Chujo even more. The luminous pearl in her hand fell to the ground. On the right side of the stone wall, there was a picture of her in the modern era when she was on a mission. The pistol in her hand was emitting a cold light, and there was a corpse on the opposite side. Yun Chujo was stunned for a moment. She picked up the night luminescent pearl and continued to look down. The pictures were all of her in the modern era. Most of them were when she was on a mission, and occasionally there were pictures of her with Chi-Chi. Yoon Chujia's eyes could not help but turn red. Suddenly, she turned around and the luminous pearl shone on the stone wall on the left. There was a moment of blank space on the stone wall, and then it turned into the scene of her holding the luminous pearl in the tunnel. Yoon Chujio sneered. Although I don't know who you are very good at psychological tactics. You have mapped my thoughts into a mural. This kind of illusion is of a high level. After Yoon Chujio finished speaking, the sound of water could not be heard anymore. Obviously, the sound of water was just a supplementary method to let Yoon Chujio enter the illusion. Yoon Chujio used her spiritual sense to scold the black bead. Every time there was an illusion or something like that, the black bead would warn her. But this time there was no reaction. Damn it! The black bead shook indifferently. Compared to Go Weiba, it was much better, right? It was normal for it to slack off occasionally, alright? Yoon Chujio did not have the time to settle the score with the black bead. She continued to walk forward with the luminous bead in her hand. She had been stuck in the illusion just now, so she had been walking on the same spot. The passage was not too long, and she soon saw a stone hall. There was a huge chain at the four corners of the stone hall, and the place where the chain intersected was actually a huge coffin. The material used for the coffin was extremely exquisite, and there were exquisite engravings on it. When Yoon Chujio was looking at it, the Guai Chao in her dantian was so excited that it was about to fly into the sky, and its excited target was the huge coffin. Yoon Chujio was already speechless. No matter what, she could still accept the food that Go Weiba ate in the past. After all, it was just some poisonous pills and venom. Now that it actually wanted to eat that huge coffin, it simply couldn't live. The strange grass in her dantian shook its leaves repeatedly, indicating that it did not want to eat the big coffin, but wanted to eat the things in the big coffin. Yoon Chujio's heart felt like it was bickering with the dog. The things in the big coffin? What could there be in the coffin? Wasn't that a corpse? It might even be a zombie. Let her die first, she really did not want to live anymore. Just as Yoon Chujio was feeling hopeless, the four chains turned into four black flood dragons and pounced on her. Damn! She knew that there must be a big problem. Yoon Chujio dodged the attacks of the four black flood dragons in a sorry state. She had no other choice but to use talismans. As for the loud noise that attracted other people, there was nothing she could do. At worst, she could only reveal the sect leader ring. Yoon Chujio raised her spiritual energy barrier and threw several explosive talismans at the four black flood dragons. Boom! Boom! Several loud explosions sounded. The four black flood dragons were blasted into a bloody mess. As they were too close to each other, Yoon Chujio also spat out a mouthful of blood. This fellow was also forced into a helpless situation. This was the worst-case scenario of injuring the enemy by 1,000, but since it was an emergency, it could only be done this way. Yoon Chujio's blood dripped onto the green stone slab, turning into four bloodlines that quickly spread to the four corners of the roof. The four chains actually loosened at the same time, and the huge coffin fell to the ground with a bang. At the same time, the four black flood dragons also disappeared. Yoon Chujio's eyes were wide open. Oh my god, when did her blood become so mysterious? She actually broke all four chains? Just as she was shocked, Go Weiba started acting up again, so she could only focus on the coffin. To be honest, Yoon Chujio had never thought that a person's coffin could be so exquisite. Previously, she did not see it clearly when she was hanging in the air, but now she saw the exquisite carvings on it. Of course, this fellow knew that the more beautiful something was, the more dangerous it was. Just like poisonous mushrooms, the brighter the color, the stronger the poison. The illusion from before couldn't have come out for no reason. It was most likely caused by the thing inside the coffin. Now the question was, should she open it or not? According to Yoon Chujio's original intention, she naturally didn't want to open it. However, the Guai Chao in her dantian was about to go crazy. Yoon Chujio had no choice but to prop up the spiritual energy cover, Lengthen the rolling pin, and start to push the coffin lid. Then yes, she could not push it. Yoon Chujo took a closer look and realized that this damn big coffin was actually carved from one body. There was no so-called coffin lid at all. Was there something wrong with it? How could such a seamless coffin contain a corpse? Could it be that there was actually nothing inside? Yoon Chujo used the rolling pin to knock on it. There was a clanging sound coming from inside. It was really hollow inside. How could she put something inside without a lid? Guai Chao started to play tricks again. Yoon Chujo was furious. Go away, ba. I'm warning you. You took control of my body without my consent just now. I've already spared you once. If you play tricks again, I won't hold back. Don't think that I can't do anything to you. You're not the only one in your dantian. Little Jingjing and the glass ball won't sit idly by and do nothing. Do as you see fit. Guai Chao's leaves trembled. After weighing the pros and cons, it thought of debeaming that evil star. It was terrified. Anyway, this little girl did not say that she would not help it take out the things inside. It would just have to wait a little longer. After Yoon Chujo suppressed the Guai Chao, she began to carefully examine the large coffin in front of her. She felt that there must be an entrance to this coffin. Otherwise, how would the things inside go in? Yoon Chujo observed for a long time and finally thought of a good idea. She took out a basin of water from her storage ring and poured it on the coffin. As expected, she found a small eye that was as small as a needle's nose. Yoon Chujia's discovery not only did not solve the problem, but she was even more confused. How did the thing go in with such a small eye? Hey, is there anything alive in there? If you don't want to be blown to death by me, come out now. Otherwise, I'm going to make a move. Yoon Chujo shouted a few times, but there was no movement inside. Yoon Chujo gritted her teeth and was about to use the talisman to blow up the coffin, but Guai Chao didn't want to do it anymore. The meaning was obvious. If the coffin was blown up, the thing inside would be destroyed. Yoon Chujo had no choice but to try her best. She took out a large kitchen knife and began to cut the large coffin. It was indeed a large kitchen knife that was necessary for traveling. It really did move. Yoon Chujo sniffed. Because the large coffin had been cut, the wood at the break gave off an intoxicating fragrance. She did not know what kind of wood it was, but it was so magical. If it was made into a fragrance bag, it would definitely sell for a good price. She would be rich. Yoon Chujo became more and more curious about what was inside the coffin. To be able to use such a precious wood to make a coffin, what exactly was inside? 10,000-year-old dumpling? Or was it something like a crystal corpse? Although the large kitchen knife could move the large coffin, it was also very laborious. Yoon Chujo hacked for a long time before she finally made a hole. Yoon Chujo could not wait to look inside the coffin. However, the thing inside was not a red-furred dumpling or a crystal corpse. Yoon Chujo rubbed her eyes. She really could not believe what she saw. There was actually a blade of grass inside. Before Yoon Chujo could take a closer look, the Guai Chao had already taken control of her body. The Guai Chao easily plucked the blade of grass, chewed it and swallowed it. The Guai Chao's wish was fulfilled. It passed the control of its body to Yoon Chujo, and then it began to form the shape of a heart to act cute. Yoon Chujo was so angry that she gritted her teeth, but there was nothing she could do. Unless it was a very important time, the Great Void Mirror and the Black Bead would only watch coldly from the side. They would not stop the Guai Chao's actions. Yoon Chujo saw that the Guai Chao had already eaten the grass, so she had no choice but to put the big coffin and the 4 chains into her storage ring. No matter what, these things should be treasures. Yoon Chujo suddenly thought of something. The grass that was eaten by the Guai Chao had first entered the coffin in the form of a seed. Perhaps the coffin was just a trunk at that time. The plant grew slowly on the nourishment of the tree trunk. Later, the tree trunk was discovered and made into a coffin without a lid. However, who did this? And for what? To reflect on the past? This place would not become a forbidden area for no reason. An elderly would not appear here for no reason. Could it be related to the plant? Also, who was the one who created the illusion? Perhaps it was because this place was set up with an illusion? Also, why did the 4 chains break after her blood seeped into the stone slab? Just as Yun Chujo was puzzled, the stone hall began to tremble. Rocks began to roll down from above her head. Oh no, this place was about to collapse. Yun Chujo did not have time to think about anything else and ran desperately towards the stone steps. However, it was too late. Huge rocks began to fall from the top of her head. Yun Chujo gritted her teeth. She could only try her best. She took out a bunch of explosive talismans and threw them into the distance. Her idea was very simple. From the distance, she estimated that this place should not be too far from the surface of the earth. After the place collapsed, she could exit through the gap. Things went unexpectedly smoothly. A corner of the stone hall collapsed. Yun Chujo could see the starry sky outside. She did not care much and jumped out from the gap. A certain Jiao was once again in a tragedy. Damn it! Who could tell her why she fell down the cliff after jumping out of the hole? A certain Jiao had spent a lot of effort to fix herself on the cliff wall. However, it was also good. Anyway, she had originally planned to go to the mulberry garden on the other side of the cliff. However, she did not have time to set the Sigua residence on fire. She did not know if it would leave a disaster behind. Just as Yun Chujo was thinking about it, she noticed that the stone wall where she was standing started to tremble. Damn! Would the cliff collapse as well? Yun Chujo did not dare to be careless. She did not care about any future trouble, so she accelerated and climbed down the cliff. Just as she landed at the bottom of the cliff started to collapse. This fellow wanted to cry, but he had no tears. He quickly climbed up to the other side of the cliff. The rumbling sounds kept coming. Yun Chujo caught a glimpse of a signboard. There were 3 bright words on it: Siguaju. Yun Chujo was stunned at first. Then she grinned. It seemed that the area where Sigua lived had also collapsed. Even if someone went down the cliff, they would not be able to find anything. This time, she did not have to worry about being discovered. This fellow happily began to climb up the cliff. She wanted to sneak into the mulberry garden before anyone came and climbed up the cliff. As for the fact that someone had seen her walking towards the forbidden area during the day, since no one had caught her in the act, she just had to deny it. After this fellow climbed up the cliff, only then did she realize that, fuck, she was simply too stupid. Since there was no ban on flying down here, why didn't she just sit on the chopping board and fly up? However, this fellow could also be considered to have accidentally bumped into her. Because she did not use her spiritual power, she was not discovered by the higher-ups of the Chaos Origin sect who had rushed over one after another. Yun Chujo hurriedly slipped into the mulberry garden and changed into a set of clothes in the small room next to the silkworm room. Only then did she let out a long sigh of relief. No matter what, it was still considered to have been smooth sailing this time. She had gotten rid of Elder Li and even obtained a large coffin. Guai Chao had also gotten what she wanted, and everyone was happy. As she had not eaten at night, this fellow took out some food and casually ate a bit. Not long after she lay on the bed, there was a knock on the door outside the mulberry garden. Open the door. Open the door. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes and messed up her hair and clothes. Only then did she open the door. There was an old man and several disciples standing at the door. Although Yun Chujo did not know this old man, she knew the clothes of those disciples. They were actually law enforcement disciples. Yun Chujo showed a puzzled expression. Elder, why are you here so late at night? By the way, I heard a loud noise just now. Did something happen? Did the earth dragon turn over? Do you need to move the snow jade silkworm? The old man sized up Yun Chujo. He saw that her eyes were hazy, her hair was messy, and her clothes were not neat. It was obvious that she had just woken up from her sleep. Nothing much. Is there anything unusual about the snow jade silkworm? The old man asked without batting an eyelid. I went to take a look just now and was a little restless. I comforted her a little better. Fortunately, I stayed here on duty today. Otherwise, I was really worried that the snow jade silkworms would be scared out of their wits. Elder, what exactly happened? If I wasn't worried about the snow jade silkworms, I would have gone out to take a look. Yoon Chujia's eyes flashed with a strong light of gossip. She stretched her neck and wanted to look outside. The old man showed an impatient expression. Nothing happened. Just take good care of the mulberry garden. After saying that, the old man left in a hurry with his disciples. Yoon Chujio muttered to herself, what exactly happened? Forget it, I'll go and take a look at the snow jade silkworm. I don't want to be scared out of my wits and end up in a cocoon. As she spoke, Yoon Chujio ran quickly to the silkworm room. From the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of a black shadow flashing past. Yoon Chujio pursed her lips. Playing this game with her? She was really too inexperienced. It seemed that this round was over. It was better to be careful in the future. Perhaps someone had already set their eyes on her. Yoon Chujio pushed open the door of the silkworm room. She saw that the snow jade silkworms were slightly restless. Yoon Chujio comforted them a few times. After seeing that they had regained their calm, she returned to her own room. As the people outside turned upside down, a certain Joe had a good sleep. A certain Joe was sleeping soundly when the kitten's crying voice sounded in her mind. Master, help! Help! Yoon Chujio jumped up from the bed in shock and sent her spiritual sense into the spiritual beast bag. She thought that Xiao Hanyo had been bullied by the little black bird and the others again, so she was very angry. These prodigals. Xiao Hanyo had suffered such serious injuries, but they still bullied it. They were really too insensible. However, after sending her spiritual sense in, she found that it was not the case at all. Master, there's something on my head. I'm most likely going to die. The kitten cried. Yoon Chujio took a closer look and saw that there was a small horn growing out of the kitten's head. It looked quite cute. Yoon Chujio recalled for a moment. The fire-breathing cat did not seem to have horns on its head, and the fire-eating Xiao did not have horns either. However, perhaps this was a good thing. It was possible that this near-death experience had triggered the kitten's ancestral bloodline. Yoon Chujio explained her guess, and the kitten immediately stopped whining. It seemed that most of the injuries on its body had healed. Ever since it became Yoon Chujio's spiritual pet, it had felt a little inferior. It felt that it did not have the noble bloodline of Xiao Hanyo and Xiao Hanyo. Now that it heard that it had the possibility of awakening its ancestral bloodline, one could imagine the excitement in its heart. After Yoon Chujio comforted the kitten and withdrew her spiritual sense, Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu arrived. Seeing that Yoon Chujio was safe and sound, the two of them did not ask any further questions. The three of them chatted for a while and then started to work. Yoon Chujio saw that the snow silkworms were still a little restless. However, after being threatened by Yoon Chujio once, they did not dare to attack the three of them. Yoon Chujio could not help but feel a little puzzled. These snow silkworms had food, drinks, and people to serve them. Why were they so agitated? Yoon Chujio simply contracted a snow jade silkworm to ask for the reason. After learning the reason, Yoon Chujio could not help but feel a little confused. The reason why the snow jade silkworms were so agitated was because of their habits. The snow jade silkworms were different from the silkworms of the secular world. After they formed a cocoon, they would not turn into pupae, nor would they turn into moths. After breaking out of the cocoon, they would still be in the form of silkworms. The following period of time was very important for the snow jade silkworms, and that was to reproduce. Then there was a problem. In the wild, the mating of snow jade silkworms was controlled by the silkworm king. The silkworm king would choose the most suitable female silkworm to mate with, and then allocate the remaining females to other male silkworms. Due to the supreme authority of the Silkworm King, the silkworms would not have any objections and the mating could proceed according to the schedule. However, ever since these snow jade silkworms were tamed, there was no Silkworm King among them. Therefore, every mating period was a bloodbath. Male silkworms would bite each other in order to compete for the right to mate. By the time the winner was decided, more than half of the mating period had passed. Therefore, only a few females would become pregnant in the end. Yun Chujo finally understood why Elder Jiang had said that there would be dozens of new silkworms. So that was the reason. Yun Chujo touched her chin. Wouldn't it be easier without the king of silkworms? She would just be the king of silkworms? When the mating period came, she would pair them up. Let's see which one of them would dare to resist. When the snow jade silkworms heard Yun Chujia's words, their anxiety was swept away, and they began to eat in peace, waiting for their cocoons to form. A month passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, Elder Jiang and the other two came to check on the silkworms. When they saw that the snow jade silkworms were being fed until they were chubby, they were very satisfied. They didn't take the unhappiness from before to heart. Before the three of them left, Yun Chujo said with a smile, "Elders, please wait. I have something to report." Elder Jiang and the other two stopped in their tracks and looked at Yun Chujo in confusion. "What's the matter?" "Elders, I've heard that the reproduction of these snow jade silkworms isn't going smoothly every time. They only lay a few dozen eggs. I think that this might be related to the fighting during their mating period. Therefore, I have an idea that might increase their spawning rate. I would like to consult the three elders." Then Yun Chujo told them her idea. Elder Jiang and the other two frowned. The snow jade silkworms during mating were extremely irritable and could easily attack humans. So for many years, these snow jade silkworms had been mating freely. Was it really possible to interfere with them manually? Yun Chujo, whether your idea is feasible or not is another matter. You should know that the snow jade silkworms during mating are extremely irritable. Aren't you afraid of being attacked by them? Elder Ding asked. "I know, but I am willing to take the risk to do my part for the sect," Yun Chujo said respectfully. The three elders looked at each other. They did not expect that although this little girl had a sharp tongue, she was still an innocent child. She was willing to take the risk to contribute to the sect. It was really not bad. "All right, since you are mentally prepared, then give it a try." Yun Chujo rubbed her hands and said, "Well, I have a presumptuous request. Can you give us more contribution points?" The three elders were stunned and then nodded with a smile. "Of course. When the time comes, we will pay you double the contribution points." Yun Chujo shook her head. "Elders, as the saying goes, you will not be rewarded for doing nothing. If we fail, how can we have the face to ask for contribution points? How about this? During the normal mating period, they can breed about 60 new silkworms. If we hatch one more, we will be rewarded with 5 contribution points each. What do you think?" Elder Jiang and the other two discussed and nodded in agreement. After all, the value of one snow jade silkworm was much higher than 5 contribution points. Besides, although Yun Chujo said that there was a nose and an eye, how could those snow jade silkworms listen to her arrangement? Not to mention a few more, it was already good enough to have a lot of them. Very soon, the snow jade silkworms were still spinning their cocoons. It was only then that Yun Chujo realized that one silkworm could only spin a cocoon. Her plan of plucking the sheep's wool was ruined. This fellow felt that she had made a loss in her business and sighed all day long. Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu were speechless and could not be bothered with her. 5 days later, the snow jade silkworms began to break out of their cocoons one after another. Matchmaker Joe was online. Jin Ji was very busy. Although the snow jade silkworms were anxious, they didn't dare to attack her. They had no choice but to start mating according to her arrangements. After the 3-day mating period, the female silkworms began to lay eggs. Elder Jiang and the other two heard that the young silkworms had hatched and ran over to check. Not bad, not bad. There are 70 young silkworms in these 2 baskets. When the time comes, we will reward each of you with 50 contribution points. Elders, don't worry, I still have more. Yun Chujio took out 2 more baskets from the silkworm room. What? There are 80 new silkworms? The 3 elders couldn't believe their eyes. Elders, this is only a part. There are more inside. Don't worry, we will bring them out now. 1 basket, 2 baskets. Elder Jiang and the other 2 pinched themselves hard. They felt as if they were in a dream. Was this snow jade silkworm crazy? How could it produce so many little silkworms this time? Chapter 2647 7,500 contribution points 1. While Elder Jiang and the other 2 were still in a daze, Yun Chuzhou counted with her fingers and said, Elders, we have counted them all. There is a total of 1,560 new silkworms. If we remove the base figure of 60, there is an additional 1,500 silkworms. Each of them has 5 contribution points. You 3 can just give each of us 7,500 contribution points. What the hell was that? 7,500 contribution points? Elder Jiang and the other 2 elders' heads were buzzing. Although the number of serpents that they had produced was indeed not small, it was impossible to reward each of them with 7,500 contribution points at once. The other disciples who had fought with their lives did not have so many contribution points. If this news were to spread, wouldn't it cause a stir? That Yun Chujio. Yes, we did say that 1 serpents will reward you with 5 contribution points, but this 7,500 contribution points is really too much. Elder Ding said with some embarrassment. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. Too much? That's easy. How much do you think it is? The 3 elders looked at each other. They did not expect Yun Chujio to be so easy to talk to. The 3 of them discussed for a while. We can't let you work for nothing. How about this? Each of you will be rewarded with an additional 1,000 contribution points. What do you think? Yun Chujio nodded. No problem. 1,000 contribution points means 200 new silkworms. We will just kill all the extra silkworms. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. As Yun Chujio said this, she was about to destroy the silkworms. The 3 elders were anxious and angry. Stop. Yun Chujio, don't be too impudent. Yun Chujio sneered. 3 elders, as the saying goes, a promise must be kept. Did I force you to agree to 5 contribution points for a new silkworm? Moreover, this is not a one-time deal. In 3 months, some snow jade silkworms will have their mating period again. Elder Jiang and the other 2 had never met such a bold and shameless servant before. They were furious, but they had to admit that what Yun Chujio said made sense. It was true that they had broken their promise first, and the snow jade silkworms would have their mating period in 3 months. If they could breed so many snow jade silkworms, their Tianji Peak's income would be huge. After weighing the options, the 3 of them gritted their teeth and said, All right, then I'll reward each of you with 7,500 contribution points. Yun Chujio immediately smiled and said, That's right. One must be honest when doing business. These snow jade silkworms are very docile after mating period. Please find someone else to take charge of the mulberry garden. Well, go back to the kitchen now. You guys can stay in the mulberry garden. I'll go to the General Affairs office and tell them. Elder Jiang was still counting on Yun Chujio and the others to take care of the next mating of the snow jade silkworms. No need to trouble you. We'll work part-time when the snow jade silkworms mate. Please give us your contribution points as soon as possible. Yun Chujio had been tired of living in the mulberry garden for a long time. Now that she had contribution points, what was she waiting for? Elder Jiang and the other 2 could only transfer their contribution points to Yun Chujio and the other 2. They would report to the Peak Master of Tianji Peak and make up for it later. Yoon Chujio and the other two left the mulberry garden happily after the new servants started working. The three of them didn't go back to the kitchen. Who would be willing to light a fire for fun? A certain Jio had plenty of spirit stones anyway, so she would continue to hire the four people. When the three of them arrived at the library, a certain Jio and the other two placed their identity jade plates in front of the guard disciple. The disciple curled his lips in disdain. He remembered very clearly that it was these three handymen who had come to read the book without a single contribution point. This time it was estimated that they would only have a few dozen contribution points at most. That disciple did not even look at the three people's identity jade plates. He said with disdain, "If you want to read in the library, you need at least 100 contribution points to be qualified. Do you have any? Didn't I tell you to read the complete works of the primordial chaos sect? You can't be illiterate, right?" Some disciples behind Yoon Chujio shouted, "Seriously, if you don't have any contribution points, hurry up and get out of the way. Don't waste our time." That's right, what are the three odd job workers reading? Can they understand it? Isn't this Yoon Chujio? I heard that she accepted the mission to raise snow jade silkworms. It seems that the reward is 100 contribution points. When the disciple guarding the library heard that, he curled his lips and picked up Yoon Chujio's identity jade plate to swipe on the groove. Then he was dumbfounded when he saw the number displayed on it. When the people in the queue saw that the disciple was stunned and did not say anything, they urged impatiently, "Hey Lu Shun, can you hurry up? If you have enough contribution points, hurry up and let them go. If you don't have enough, hurry up and chase them away. What are you dawdling for?" Lu Shun ignored everyone's urging. After he took down Yoon Chujio's identity jade plate, he stuck Jinji and Yibinji's identity jade plates on it and looked at them. Then he was completely dumbfounded. After a while he jumped up and pointed at Yoon Chujio. You, tell me, what underhanded method did you use to turn your contribution points into 7,500 contribution points? When the people waiting in line heard Lu Shun's words, they exploded. 7,500 contribution points? What a joke. Mo Han, who was ranked first among the disciples, only had 5,000 contribution points. And that was because he often took on missions that were difficult to complete. How could Yoon Chujio and the other two have 7,500 contribution points? There must have been a mistake when Tianji Peak distributed the contribution points, which was why they were able to take such a huge advantage. This was too unfair. No, they had to give an explanation. One of the Tianji Peak disciples didn't have time to wait in line, and immediately went to report to the elders of Tianji Peak. Yoon Chujio glanced at Lu Shun and said, "How I got these 7,500 contribution points has nothing to do with you, right? I'm just asking if you have 100 contribution points. If you have enough, cut the crap and let us in." Lu Shun was slapped. You wait. The truth will come out sooner or later. Just you wait to be expelled from the Chaos Origin sect. Yoon Chujio looked at Lu Shun as if he was an idiot. Then she picked up the identity jade token and the jade token to enter the library and entered the library. The people who were waiting in line didn't have the mood to enter the library anymore. They were all waiting for the news of the Tianji Peak disciples. There must be something wrong here. They had only entered the sect less than 2 months ago, and it was impossible for them to get so many contribution points. Besides, the disciples who had been in the sect for more than 100 years didn't have so many contribution points, okay? While everyone was looking forward to it, a Tianji Peak disciple ran over while panting. Their contribution points are real. They got them by raising snow jade silkworms. What? What a joke. Didn't they only get 100 contribution points by raising snow jade silkworms? Could it be that the elders of Tianji Peak didn't know how to count? The disciple of Tianji Peak told them the whole story, and everyone was stunned for a while. Then they looked at each other, thinking that the elders of Tianji Peak were most likely crazy. No matter how precious the snow jade silkworm was, it shouldn't have rewarded Yun Chujio and the others with so many contribution points. Spending dozens of days to raise the insects and obtaining 7,500 contribution points? How could people like them, who came and went in the wind and rain, barely survive and earn a few hundred contribution points? How could they live? This was too unfair. Everyone realized something else. The contribution points of the disciples of the Hunyuan sect were displayed on the merit monument in real time. Emo Han was originally ranked first, but wasn't she replaced by Yun Chujio and the other two? 3 odd job workers from the big kitchen stepped on the heads of all the disciples. This was too ironic. Let me tell you, the good days of those 3 odd job workers have come to an end. The merit monument only shows the names of the top 100 disciples. Now that they've been pushed up by 3 odd job workers, someone will definitely find trouble with them. That's right. The merit tablet has always been under the rule of true disciples and inner disciples. There must be someone who dislikes them. Let's just wait for a good show. Hey, what are you doing running so fast? I'm going to see if Mulberry Garden is still hiring. Yun Chujio didn't know what was going on outside. At this moment, she was so shocked by the library of the Primordial Chaos sect that she couldn't speak. In her impression, the library was just rows and rows of bookshelves with jade slips and sheepskin books on them. However, who could tell her why the books in the library of the Primordial Chaos sect were floating in the air? Jinji and Yi Bingyu were also dumbfounded. These books were floating in the air. How could they see them? Do we have to jump up and catch them ourselves? The 3 of them were at a loss. They could only watch the others' movements from the side. After watching for a while, they finally understood that as long as they injected their spiritual sense into the jade token in their hands, they would be able to see the classification inside. After choosing a certain book, that book would fall into the hands of those who needed it. It was actually so advanced. A certain Joe gave it a try and immediately felt that it was very interesting. Hence, this idiot began to change books non-stop. Everyone saw that one book after another fell into a certain Joe's hands. After being flipped through a few times, she changed into a new book. Everyone despised her. She was really a country bumpkin who had not seen the world before. A certain Joe discovered that the books on this level were not of much help to her. They were all low-level pill recipes and talisman books. Fortunately, there were some miscellaneous books that were quite interesting. The things recorded on them were all strange things. Yun Chujio found a record in a book. It was somewhat similar to the large coffin that she had obtained. It was rumored that there was a strange tree in ancient times. It was called citron. Citron had a strange fragrance and was a kind of precious spice. After making the citron into a coffin, the person inside would never decay. This was not too strange because coffins made of some materials made of 10,000-year-old ice also had this effect. The more strange thing about the citron-made coffin was, Yun Chujio almost fainted from anger when she saw this. The words at the back of the coffin had become blurry and nothing could be seen anymore. Normally, the writing materials used in this kind of sheepskin ancient scroll would not be affected for hundreds of thousands of years. How could it be affected here? Yun Chujio did not give up and flipped through the pages. The words at the back had all been affected. She was so angry that she was twitching. It was not easy for her to find a valuable book, but it turned out to be like this. No matter what, this meant that there was something extraordinary about the coffin. She just had to keep it for now. Little Joe, it's getting late. Let's go out. Jinji said. Okay, you two go back. I won't be going back tonight, Yun Chujio said casually as she was engrossed in reading a secret book. Jinji and Yi Bingyu were both a little tired. Hearing Yun Chujio's words, they nodded and left. There were fewer and fewer people in the library. Although the library did not prohibit people from staying overnight, most people would leave at night. There were night pearls hanging on the roof of the library, so it was bright even at night. Yoon Chujo ate a few meat buns, took out a recliner and continued to read. At midnight, Yoon Chujo yawned and took out a bed from her storage ring. She lay on it and slept soundly. What this guy didn't know was that while she was sleeping soundly, the book that she had read previously, which was covered in goatskin, slipped into her storage ring. If she had seen it, she would have been stunned. Only the owner's spiritual sense could drive the storage ring to pick up items. It was strange that the book could slip into it by itself. The next morning, Yoon Chujo continued to read. This guy wanted to see if there were any clues about the Guai Chao. He also wanted to find out where there was lightning or how to absorb more lightning. When it was close to noon, the sound transmission talisman in the storage ring vibrated. Jinji's voice came from it. Little Joe, think of something. The law enforcement said that we went AWOL. They went to the library to catch you. A faint light flashed in Yoon Chujo's eyes. AWOL? It was probably a red-eye disease, right? Yoon Chujo thought for a while and then left the library. Coincidentally, a few disciples of the law enforcement office had already arrived in front of the library. After seeing Yoon Chujo, they said coldly, Yoon Chujo, someone reported that you went AWOL. Come with us to the law enforcement office. Yoon Chujo nodded lightly. After I go through the procedures to leave the library, I'll go with you. The law enforcement disciples did not expect Yoon Chujo to be so cooperative. They were all a little surprised. After Yoon Chujo finished the procedures, she said, let's go. I haven't been to the law enforcement office yet. I'll go and recognize the door. I guess I'll have to go often in the future. The disciples of the law enforcement office looked at each other. Was Yoon Chujo scared out of her mind? What did she mean by go there often? Who would be willing to go to the law enforcement office for no reason? Perhaps the disciples of the primordial chaos sect were too bored and had nothing better to do. Soon, many disciples gathered to watch the show. They followed Yoon Chujo and the others and arrived at the law enforcement office of Dubhe Peak in a mighty manner. Although the other 6 peaks also had their own law enforcement office, the Dubhe Peak's law enforcement office was the most authoritative and the most powerful. Yoon Chujo could not help but sneer in her heart. The law enforcement office was sent out just because he left his post without permission? She really had a lot of face. Under normal circumstances, if a handyman left his post without permission, the law enforcement office could handle it. It was nothing more than punishing some sect's resources and transferring them away from their posts. Why would there be a need for the law enforcement office? Moreover, it was the law enforcement department of Dubhe Peak. The law enforcement process of the law enforcement department was public. Therefore, Yoon Chujo was brought to a small square in the law enforcement department. Jinji and Yi Bingyu were already brought here. Initially, the two of them were a little anxious and uneasy. However, when they saw Yoon Chujo's calm appearance, their emotions inexplicably relaxed. As long as Yoon Chujo was here, they felt that they had a backbone. Yoon Chujo, Jinji, Yi Bingyu, you were originally servants in the big kitchen, but you went to Tianji Peak's mulberry garden to earn contribution points. Do you know your crime? A law enforcing steward said with a gloomy face. No, Yoon Chujo said in a crisp voice. Everyone was dumbfounded. How could she say no so righteously? Did she really not know, or was she stubbornly resisting? The law enforcement manager slammed the table. How dare you? All of you are leaving your posts without permission. According to the Academy's rules, those who leave their posts without permission will be punished by forfeiting the sect's resources for 3 years, and they will have to reflect on their actions for half a year. In addition, all the contribution points that you have received will be forfeited. Some of the onlookers were gloating, some were sighing, and most of them were just watching the show. Yoon Chujo had caused a lot of trouble during the entrance test, and now she had committed a crime less than 2 months after entering the sect. She was really a troublemaker. However, the evidence was conclusive. She could not refute it even if she wanted to. She could only wait to think about it. There are indeed records of desertion in the 105 rules of the sect. However, there are a few more detailed rules behind it. Could it be that this steward did not see it? That's right. We did go to Mulberry Garden to raise snow jade silkworms, But did we delay the work in the big kitchen? According to the sect rules, if we didn't cause any losses, we could just give a verbal warning and forfeit half a year's worth of supplies. I don't know why you're punishing us so severely. Could it be that you're jealous because we've received so many contribution points? If that's the case, then I advise you to stop being a law enforcement disciple and just go to the mulberry garden to raise snow jade silkworms. However, I'm afraid that snow jade silkworms won't like people like you. After all, snow jade silkworms only like people with a good heart. Regardless of whether it was the crowd or the law enforcement manager, never in their wildest dreams did they expect that there would be a handyman who dared to contradict the law enforcement manager so boldly when he was being punished. Moreover, although she didn't point at the manager's nose and scold him, her words clearly implied that he had a vicious heart. Everyone felt that although what Yoon Chujo said made sense and they indeed did not deserve such a heavy punishment, the law enforcement office had plenty of ways to deal with the 3 odd job workers, so why go against them head-on? There would be a lot of trouble in the future. The manager of the law enforcement office was so angry that his face turned red. He slammed the table hard. You dare to contradict me like this? You're really guilty. TSK. Which rule says that you are superior as a manager of the law enforcement office? Don't tell me that you wronged us and we can only accept it? Looking at your behavior, you must have done a lot of wrong cases in the past, right? Don't tell me that you have done a lot of immoral things by using your official position for personal gain, using your official position for personal revenge? This time you are targeting the 3 of us. Did you also receive some benefits from someone? Yoon Chujo said with a cold smile. Boom! The crowd instantly exploded. They had never heard of Yoon Chujio's tone before. Even if they had some opinions about the law enforcement department's tyranny, they could only keep it in their hearts. How could they dare to point it out in front of them? It had to be said that this Yoon Chujo was too bold. Was she not planning well? The law enforcement manager's face alternated between green and white, feeling guilty and angry. He shouted, "Nonsense! Men, escort them to the number 18 meditation cave immediately." Everyone cried out in surprise. There were different levels of meditation caves in the Chaos Origin sect. The higher the number of meditation caves, the more severe the punishment inside. If Yoon Chujo and the others went to the number 18 meditation cave, not to mention half a year, they would probably lose their lives in half a day. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. TSK. Are you angry from embarrassment? You actually used public office to take revenge in front of so many people. It shows that you must have done such things in the past. Yoon Chujo did not have a trace of fear on her face. She was still as calm as ever. The law enforcement manager was so angry that he stomped his feet. What are you waiting for? Quickly take them away. Seeing this, the law enforcement disciples were about to escort Yoon Chujo and the other 2 to the cave of reflection when they saw Yoon Chujo coldly say, "If any of you dare to touch me, I will kill him. If you don't believe me, try." The law enforcement disciples were shocked by the murderous aura on Yoon Chujio's body. Then they heard Yoon Chujo continue, "That manager. Did you forget something very important? Even if what you said makes sense, we went AWOL. But we received our mission from the General Affairs Department. The General Affairs Department didn't stop us, which means that they acquiesced. Also, Elder Jiang, Elder Ding, and Elder Wan of Tianji Peak have been communicating with us amicably. They didn't raise any objections, and they even rewarded us with 7,500 contribution points. According to what you said, should we punish them as well? In the end, we have made a huge contribution to Tianji Peak. I don't believe that Tianji Peak will ignore us. Wouldn't that be ungrateful? Senior brothers and sisters of Tianji Peak, don't you agree? Of course, there were people from Tianji Peak in the crowd. When they heard Yoon Chujio's question, they didn't know whether to admit it or not. All of them shrunk their necks and didn't say anything. The manager of the law enforcement department was sweating from Yoon Chujio's words. He didn't think too much about it, and the General Affairs Department was easy to deal with. However, if the three elders of Tianji Peak really pursued the matter, he wouldn't be able to bear it. At this moment, Yun Chujo continued, as everyone knows, we got so many contribution points because we bred snow jade silkworms. If we die in the meditation cave and the breeding of snow jade silkworms is affected, will Tianji Peak come after you? Of course, you might think that someone will protect you, but snow jade silkworms are the treasure of Tianji Peak. Who has more face than the treasure of Tianji Peak? By the way, I think that what you did this time is a slap to the three elders' faces, and Tianji Peak has lost face because of it. TSK, you'll be in trouble in the future. The young steward's back was soaked in cold sweat. He didn't think so much when he promised that person. They were just three handymen. He thought that it was a small matter. Of course, what I said just now was just a guess. I believe that the punishment this steward gave us just now was just to scare us, right? Yun Chujo looked at the young steward with a faint smile. The little steward wiped the cold sweat that kept flowing out as he weighed the pros and cons. He gritted his teeth. That's right, I was indeed scaring you just now. Considering that your intentions were good and you didn't cause any losses, I'll confiscate your sex resources for half a year. We are fully convinced by this punishment. In that case, we'll go back to work. In the future, I'll often come to the law enforcement office for a stroll. Let's have a good exchange about the explanation of the sex rules. After Yun Chujo finished speaking, she swaggered out of the small square with Jinji and Yi Bingyu. Old Man Yao, who was watching from afar, stroked his beard and turned around to leave. Occasionally missing content. Please report errors in time. The onlookers' jaws dropped. Yun Chujo left just like that? She changed Manager Zhong's mind just by saying a few words? She only punished the sex resources for half a year? Yun Chujo had plenty of spirit stones. She probably didn't even care about the sex resources for 10 years, let alone half a year. The punishment was almost the same as no punishment. Manager Zhong saw everyone's gaze and turned to leave with a stiff face. Little Joe, where are we going now? Are we going back to the kitchen to work? Yi Bingyu still had lingering fear about what had just happened. Work my ass. If worst comes to worst, we'll just punish the sex resources again. Besides, we're not going to work anywhere else, so they can't control us. I'll go back to the dormitory to take a shower and then go to the library to read. You guys can go wherever you want, Yun Chujo said indifferently. Yi Bingyu and Jinji were not interested in the library. They decided to find a place with rich spiritual energy to cultivate. After Yun Chujo returned to the dormitory, she took out a set of clean clothes from her storage ring and happened to catch a glimpse of the sheepskin scroll. Yun Chujo frowned. Why was this sheepskin scroll in her storage ring? Could it be that she accidentally took it in? Although she had plucked the feathers of wild geese, she was not a thief. She would return it to the library in a while. After Yun Chujo bathed, she ate something and went to the library again. Lu Shun, who was guarding the library, thought that Yun Chujo was captured by the law enforcement department and would definitely be in danger. He did not expect her to come back alive. Lu Shun helped Yun Chujo go through the procedures to enter the library with a gloomy face. Yun Chujo naturally would not take such a clown to heart. She entered the library happily. This guy found a comfortable seat and sat on the recliner to read. The other disciples who were reading on the first floor of the library could not help but snort when they saw Yun Chujo changing a book in less than 15 minutes. This Yun Chujo was not reading, she was here to have fun. A day passed quickly, and only Yun Chujo was left on the first floor of the library. She looked around before taking out the sheepskin scroll from her storage ring and throwing it into the air. Under normal circumstances, as long as the book was thrown into the air, it would float in the air. However, the sheepskin scroll fell to the ground with a thud. Yun Chujo was stunned. She picked it up and threw it into the air again. Thud, it fell to the ground again. Yun Chujo threw it a few times, and the parchment fell to the ground. Damn! Could it be that she was being blackmailed? Yun Chujo blinked her eyes. If someone found out that this book was on the ground, they would definitely get into trouble. Forget it, since it was just an incomplete book and not many people had read it, she would just keep it. Thinking of this, Yoon Chujo had no choice but to keep the parchment into her storage ring again. This time, Yoon Chujo stayed on the first floor of the library for a full 3 days. She flipped through all the books on the first floor of the library. Although she didn't gain much from refining pills and talismans, she learned a lot of strange things. It wasn't a waste to read them. She wanted to go to the second floor of the library. Unfortunately, the odd job workers could only read on the first floor of the library. They were not qualified to go to the second floor. There was only one way for odd job workers to become outer disciples, and that was through the biennial sect competition. All the top 50 odd job workers could be converted to outer disciples. Of course, there was another exception. That was if the spiritual power of the odd job disciples reached the level of spiritual space, they could be directly converted to inner disciples. But this was no different from a fool's dream. It was simply impossible. Yoon Chujo sighed. She could ask the 3 birds in her dantian to spit out some more lightning spiritual power for cultivation, but it was not a long-term solution. Moreover, Xiao Hanyo and Xiao Mogu also needed the power of lightning. How could they be struck by lightning? This was a very sad topic. Thus, a certain Joe began to stroll around the Origin Chaos sect. This fellow's motive was obvious. He wanted to find a way to be struck by lightning. Or perhaps he could find a divine artifact like the Heavenly Tao Cliff. After hooking up, he would think of a way to get 2 heavenly lightning strikes. The people of the Primordial Chaos sect did not know Yoon Chujia's motive. They only thought that she was temperamental, and that was why she wandered around. A month later, other than some places that could not be entered, this fellow had gone around and found nothing. He rubbed his chin and pondered for a moment. She could not enter any forbidden places. Could it be that she could only make the 3 in her dantian spit out some lightning power? Just as he was frowning, he overheard the conversation of a few disciples. Senior brother Bien Chan has returned from the meditation cave. I heard that it was because of Yoon Chujo and the others' test that senior brother Bien Chan was punished. Now that he has come out, he probably won't have a good ending for Yoon Chujo. That's for sure. Senior brother Bien Chan is a true disciple. Wouldn't it be easy for him to take care of a handyman? If I were senior brother Bien Chan, I would also teach that Yoon Chujo a lesson. Senior brother Bien Chan was sent to the 10th reflection cave. In the 10th reflection cave, other than the harsh environment, there are also wind blades attacking. The most fatal thing is that there are occasional heavenly lightning punishments. Even senior brother Bien Chan probably suffered a lot. A certain Joe's eyes sparkled. Heavenly lightning punishments? Ayo. It was truly a waste of time and effort to search for it. It seemed that she needed to understand the meditation cave properly. In the Encyclopedia of Mixed Origin Sect Affairs, there was no detailed description of the meditation cave. It only said that the bigger the number, the harsher the punishment inside the meditation cave. This fellow rolled her eyes. The one who understood the cave of reflection the most was naturally the law enforcement office. Therefore, this guy swaggered to the law enforcement office. The disciples of the law enforcement office had a deep impression of Yoon Chujo. They were all stunned when they saw her coming. What was this Yoon Chujo doing here? Could it be that she wanted to report someone? Hello, senior brothers. I'm looking for Manager Zhong. May I know where he works? Yoon Chujo said with a smile. The disciples of the law enforcement department were not used to Yoon Chujia's kind expression. They were stunned for a moment before one of the disciples said, Manager Zhong works in the 3rd room on the right. Yoon Chujo thanked the disciple who spoke with a smile, and then jumped outside of Manager Zhong's room. Manager Zhong was really surprised to see Yoon Chujo come in. He didn't know whether it was because of a guilty conscience or some other reason, but he actually stood up nervously. Yoon Chujo, what are you doing here? I'm here to chat with you. We are old acquaintances. Don't be nervous. Sit down and let's have a good chat. Yun Chujo pulled a chair over and sat on it with her legs crossed. Manager Zhong felt that Yun Chujo had bad intentions. He said with a cold face, "I'm in the middle of work. I don't have time to chat. You can leave now." "I didn't say that I was chatting with you. I have something serious to ask you. Tell me about the specific situation of the meditation cave, so that I can be mentally prepared. Otherwise, if I'm not careful, I'll be punished to go to the meditation cave with a big number. It'll be troublesome." Yun Chujo was still smiling. It was really like chatting with an old friend. Manager Zhong didn't want to talk about the meditation cave with Yun Chujo, but a certain Zhou showed no intention of leaving, so he could only briefly introduce the situation of the meditation cave. The meditation cave of the Hunyuan sect was set up to punish disciples who had committed mistakes, and it was said to have existed for tens of thousands of years. The meditation cave was located at the back of the Tianshu Peak, and it was arranged according to the number from 1 to 30. The higher the number, the heavier the punishment. The meditation cave number 1 to number 3 only had a harsh environment inside. There were no other punishments. The meditation cave number 4 to number 9 had a harsh environment and a wind blade punishment. Starting from the meditation cave number 10, besides the harsher environment and the heavier wind blade punishment, there was also a gradually heavier lightning punishment. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes. "Last time, you said that you wanted to send me to the meditation cave number 18 to be punished. I wonder what kind of spiritual power level person can withstand the punishment inside?" Manager Zhong's face stiffened when he heard Yun Chujo mention the incident last time. He stammered and said, "The number 18 meditation cave. Generally, only spiritual power level people can withstand it." Yun Chujo glanced at him and didn't say anything. She skipped away. Manager Zhong couldn't understand what Yun Chujo meant. He paced back and forth restlessly in the room. He picked up his identity jade token and said, "That Yun Chujo came to me today to find out about the situation at Sigua Cave. Although she didn't say anything, I have a feeling that she wants to take revenge on me." A woman's voice came from the jade token. "She's just a handyman. Look at your future. How can she take revenge on you? She's really as timid as a mouse." Manager Zhong heard the woman's words and felt that it was true. Yun Chujo was just a handyman. How could she really dare to do anything to him? He must be thinking too much. After Yun Chujo left the law enforcement office, she took out the complete works of the Hunyuan sect and flipped through it. Her finger tapped on one of the items. This was just right. The place where her finger was written said, "The 10th rule of the sect. Beat up a fellow disciple. Depending on the severity of the incident, divide the punishment by forfeiting the sect's resources and considering the consequences." There were relevant rules under this rule. Yun Chujo felt that the 10th thought hole was enough. After all, she did not know the situation of the wind blades inside, so it was better to be conservative. Beat up a fellow disciple? Who should she beat up? Just as Yun Chujo was looking for a target to beat up, someone came to her door during lunch on this day. "Yun Chujo, I didn't expect that my injury would help you." "If it weren't for you, would I have been attacked by the snow jade silkworm? Shouldn't you compensate me for my loss?" The one who spoke was Mu Wu, who had forcefully brought Yun Chujo and the others to Mulberry Garden a few days ago. He deliberately exaggerated his injury and removed his position in Mulberry Garden. He didn't expect that Yun Chujo and the other two would take advantage of him. Naturally, he felt very unbalanced. Originally, he didn't plan to come and settle the score with Yun Chujo. However, Yi Bingying had been quite close to him recently. She had intentionally or unintentionally said that Yun Chujo had earned a few 100 million spirit stones during the test. As time went by, Mu Wu started to have evil thoughts. That was why he came to ask Yun Chujo for spirit stones. Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu stood beside Yun Chujo. Their expressions were slightly nervous. Jin Ji was about to open her mouth to defend herself. Yun Chujo curled her lips and said, Where did this mad dog come from? Don't you know that it's lunchtime now? Why did you come here for no reason? You were only bitten by the snow jade silkworm back then, and you pretended to be very serious. Do you think that everyone doesn't know your purpose? Didn't you come here just to escape from the mission of Mulberry Garden? How dare a coward like you extort my spirit stones? If I were you, I would have smashed my head against the wall and died. At this time it was lunchtime. When they heard the commotion outside, they all ran out to watch the commotion. When they heard Yoon Chujia's words, they immediately broke out in cold sweat on her behalf. She was just a handyman, and that Mu Wu was an inner sect disciple. She actually dared to talk back to him like this. She was really audacious. You, I see that you want shed tears until you see the coffin. Immediately apologize to me and compensate me with 10 million high-grade spirit stones. Otherwise, I won't be polite anymore. Mu Wu said angrily out of embarrassment. Not polite? How are you not polite? Don't tell me you want to beat up fellow disciples? Yoon Chujio said disdainfully with her arms crossed over her shoulders. You don't forget that although the primordial chaos sect forbids beating up fellow disciples, they can issue a challenge. Even if I kill you on the life and death stage, it won't violate the sect rules. When everyone heard Mu Wu's words, they immediately exploded. Although the primordial chaos sect had such a saying, the primordial chaos sect's motto was to show fraternity to fellow disciples. Therefore, no one would easily issue a challenge. This was because even if they were not punished by the sect rules, it would still be against the principles of fellow disciples and would be disliked by the higher-ups of the primordial chaos sect. The reason why Mu Wu said this was to intimidate Yoon Chujio. He felt that if a small handyman heard about the life and death arena, he would definitely be timid and give in. Everyone's thoughts were similar to Mu Wu's. They all looked at Yoon Chujio, thinking that she would definitely give in. What everyone did not expect was that Yoon Chujio suddenly jumped in front of Mu Wu and slapped him. By the time everyone reacted, Mu Wu was already restrained by Yoon Chujio. Everyone rubbed their eyes. How was this possible? Mu Wu was at the 8th layer of the spiritual void tier, while Yoon Chujio was only at the 6th layer of the spiritual profound tier. The difference between them could be said to be heaven and earth. How could Mu Wu be imprisoned by her? Although it was a successful sneak attack, it also meant that Yoon Chujio's movement technique was too fast. Mu Wu's face flushed red. He had never thought that he would be caught off guard and fall into the trap. He shouted fiercely on the outside, but on the inside he was cowardly. Yoon Chujio, what do you want to do? Don't tell me you want to publicly beat up your fellow disciples? Yoon Chujio smiled brightly. Congratulations, you got it right. I'm going to beat you up. You tortoise bastard, I haven't settled the score with you yet. And you actually came to me of your own accord. I'll beat you to death. Yoon Chujio took the rolling pin and beat him up. Everyone was dumbfounded. Was this Yoon Chujio crazy? Didn't she know that beating up a fellow disciple in public would be punished? Moreover, she had offended her superiors. The person she had beaten was an inner sect disciple, so the punishment she would receive would be even heavier. Although Jinji and Yi Bingyu were relieved to see Mu Wu beaten black and blue, they were also very worried. They advised from the side, "Little Jiu, stop beating him." Yoon Chujio said indifferently, "Don't mind it. I must teach this shameless bastard a good lesson today. If anyone wants to bully us, even if it's the Heavenly King himself, I will beat them up." Jinji and Yi Bingyu knew Yoon Chujio's personality. They thought that Yoon Chujio must have a backup plan, so they stopped trying to persuade her. Fatty Song and Fatty Luo from the kitchen stood behind the crowd and clicked their tongues. Fortunately, they didn't offend Yoon Chujio too much. Otherwise, they wouldn't have just killed the chicken. Old Man Yao came out of the house when he heard the commotion. He frowned when he saw Yoon Chujio who was beating someone up. But he didn't say anything. Yoon Chujio's beating was extremely satisfying. Mu Wu's face was swollen like a pig's head, and his front teeth were knocked out by a certain Jiu. His throat was almost broken from shouting. If it wasn't for Yi Bingying, who was hiding in the crowd, calling the people from the law enforcement department over, Mu Wu would probably die here. When the disciples from the law enforcement department saw that it was Yun Chuzhou who had committed a crime, their heads hurt a little. The last time this person had managed to get away with the crime, they didn't know what kind of trick she was going to play this time. Especially when they saw that Mu Wu was beaten to a pulp, they thought to themselves, could it be that this Yun Chuzhou was crazy? She actually beat an inner sect disciple to such a state? When Mu Wu saw the law enforcement disciples coming over, he shouted with snot and tears in his eyes, "Help! Help! This Yun Chuzhou beat up a fellow disciple. Hurry up and tie her up." When the law-enforcing disciples saw Mu Wu's honor, they could not help but feel a little disgusted. Moreover, he had a commanding tone, which made them feel even more displeased. Therefore, they turned a blind eye to the fact that Yun Chuzhou beat up Mu Wu twice in front of them. Both parties involved, come with us. After Mu Wu was released from the confinement of his spiritual power, he looked at Yun Chuzhou with his red eyes. He wanted to kill Yun Chuzhou to vent his anger, but he did not dare to openly violate the sect rules. He gritted his teeth and decided to wait and see in the future. The law enforcement disciples escorted the two of them to the law enforcement office, followed by a large group of disciples. They felt that ever since Yun Chuzhou entered the primordial chaos sect, they could have some fun to watch every 2 to 3 days. It was really not bad. Everyone left in a huff. Old Man Yao thought for a moment and followed behind them with his hands behind his back. Fatty Song and Fatty Luo curled their lips when they saw this. Why was this old man following them? Did a good-for-nothing think that he was so capable? Coincidentally, Manager Zhong was still on duty today. Manager Zhong thought of what that person had said to him and gritted his teeth. He had lost face last time, so he had to get it back this time. Moreover, this time the evidence was conclusive, so she couldn't deny it even if she wanted to. Yun Chuzhou, you beat up a fellow disciple in public. Do you know your crime? Yes, I know my crime. Don't even think about denying it. In front of everyone, it's not like you can deny it. What? You know your crime? Manager Zhong said halfway before he realized that Yun Chuzhou actually said that she knew her crime. Was there something wrong with her brain? Yes, I admit that I beat up that bastard. Who asked him to extort my spirit stones? Yun Chuzhou straightened her back and said righteously, even if there's something wrong with him, you shouldn't hit him. According to the 10th rule of the sect, you will be punished with 1 year's worth of sect resources, and you will be locked up in number 8 to meditate for 3 months. Manager Zhong said in a businesslike manner. Are you stupid? It was this bastard who provoked me first. Shouldn't I resist? Yun Chuzhou pointed at Manager Zhong's nose and scolded. Manager Zhong didn't know that Yun Chuzhou was planning to make a big deal out of this. At the very least, she had to go to the number 10 reflection cave. What was the point of going to the number 8 reflection cave? How dare you? You publicly insulted your fellow disciple, and added another month of reflection. Manager Zhong said angrily. Yun Chuzhou was angry. Can you be a little more bold? You only added 1 month of strength, but you raised the level of the reflection cave. She was so worried. It seemed that she had to do something. Otherwise, she might not be able to achieve her goal of going to the 10th meditation cave. Humph. I finally understand now. It turns out that you two are like a nest of snakes and rats. You're all the same. Is it that bastard who extorted my spiritual stones and wants to give you half of them? He's simply going too far. Today I'll let you see how powerful I am. After saying that, Yun Chuzhou threw a cracked talisman at Manager Zhong's desk. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.